Welcome. We're reconvening the Dana Point City Council meeting from March the 18th, 2014. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led tonight by Councilmember Schoeffel, and then remain standing for the invocation.
Please help me honor our nation's flag by putting your hand over your heart and repeating after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing, and the invocation will be provided by Associate Pastor Jens Christie.
My prayer tonight is on behalf of the youth that we are going to acknowledge this evening as well. I'm sure that if you're not aware of the heroin epidemic that's running rampant through the city, it is. You can buy heroin on the streets cheaper than a pack of cigarettes right now. My day is filled from the hour I get in until I go home with parents calling and asking what to do about their kids. I am really tired of doing memorial services for 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 31-year-olds who have overdosed. I don't want to do it anymore. So, anyway, this is for our kids. Would you pray with me? Lord, we lift up our teens and youth to you. We pray that each of them will know that they are wonderfully and fearfully made. We pray that in their search for identity, they will come to know that each one of them is your masterpiece. As they go about their studies in life, we ask that you will bring mentors into their life to affirm the gifts you have given them. Help us parents to be attuned to their lives and give us courage and wisdom to prod them on to discover their calling. Please help our youth to choose godly friends and bless their relationships with their parents and loved ones. Remind them to follow godly instruction and not to defile themselves with the ways of the world, relying on drugs and stealing and other worldly things. We pray that from your unlimited resources will empower them with inner strength through your Spirit. Tonight we lament that we have lost so many that once were a part of a family unit here in our county and in this city. We cry out to you to help us disciple, love, and accept our youth with a father's heart. Help us to practice, educate, and pass on your disciplines so that our youth might be still and hear your voice. We thank you tonight for the examples here of youth who have demonstrated the consequences and rewards of wise choices, and may they continue on to be mentors to others. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. We'll now move on to our presentations and proclamations. We have our Business of the Month, Proud Marys. At this time, Ursula Luna Reynosa, our Community Development Director, will present a PowerPoint presentation. Ursula?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I am pleased to announce the 2014 Business of the Month, which is Proud Marys. We are joined this evening by Proud Marys owner Steve Zarakas. I apologize butchering that name, which is located in the Dana Point Harbor. Originally opened by Mary Merrill in 1977, Steve purchased the restaurant in 2005, and it is run by Steve and his sons, Nick and Ben. The restaurant has thrived as a comfortable place where friends and family could enjoy food and a spectacular view. In 2007, the restaurant experienced a devastating fire. Steve envisioned a new beginning for Proud Marys and worked collaboratively with the county, Vintage Marina Partners, and the city to rebuild the Dana Point landmark. It reopened in 2009 on Valentine's Day. It features a new spacious patio dining area and beautiful interior with breathtaking harbor views. Proud Marys is open for business and lunch and features many great food items. Delicious food keeps its customers coming back for more. Proud Marys is also open for private events in the evenings, such as weddings, corporate parties, birthdays, and anniversaries. Most of the staff is long-term and considers the restaurant a second home. One employee named Karen has worked at Proud Marys for 19 years. This commitment and long-term staff results in much repeat business. customer service, and delicious food attracts locals and visitors from all over and keeps them coming back for more. On behalf of the City Council, I would like to congratulate Proud Marys for being selected a Business of the Month. We wish you many years of success and prosperity. Thank you.
Steve, you could join me front and center. It is my pleasure to present to you the Business of the Month for this month. You have just been such a stellar member of the community, never holding back whenever there's a need for philanthropic efforts in our city. We were devastated. I remember when I got the phone call that there was a fire at Proud Marys, and we were just heartbroken at that point because it had been such a great establishment in our community for so many years. So when you rebuilt, it's bigger and better, and we just absolutely love it. Great menu and great service. If those of you who haven't been there, you've got to try it. It'll be one of your all-time favorites in our community. So congratulations for Business of the Month. It's my honor to present that to you. We have a certificate of recognition. And featured Business of the Month for March 2014, the City of Dana Point takes great pleasure in featuring Proud Marys located at 34689 Golden Lantern Street in Dana Point, and extends our congratulations on being named Dana Point's featured Business of the Month by Mayor Lisa Bartlett on behalf of the Dana Point City Council and the City of Dana Point. Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Bartlett, council members. I love my job, I love my business, and it's a great privilege to be in the city of Dana Point and the county of Orange. So thank you very much, all.
We're going to take some pictures. You might want to turn this around. Thank you. Okay. Oh, excuse me, Steve, come back up here. Sorry. We have Heather Johnston, our Executive Director for the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce, to present you with a certificate as well.
Steve's been a member of the Dana Point Chamber for several years and a great proponent of the Chamber. He's also a member of our newest restaurant association and just an all-around good guy. So I wanted to present a plaque as well as a marketing package for the Chamber. So go ahead and do some advertising with us and we'll get you even more successful.
Thank you, Heather.
And next we have our March Employee of the Month, who's Kathy Ward, our City Clerk. Kathy, if you could come forward. And at this time I'd like to have our City Manager, Doug Chakavis. I remember when I was elected in 2006, Kathy Ward was just taking over as our City Clerk. So we were newly coming onto the council. Kathy was new in the city clerk position, and she got up to speed so quickly. As a city clerk, there is so much that encompasses that job, and she made it was seamless for us. It's like she had been there for 10 years, answered every question. If she couldn't find the answer, she was very resourceful and found the answers, and she's been doing a great job ever since, and we are just so pleased to have her as our city clerk. I'd like to have Doug Chakavis say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Bartlett. You know, I have to tell you what's unique about Kathy is that no task is too tough for her. I remember when I came here, for whatever reason, the council just couldn't get the city clerk position right. And so finally they decided to delegate that authority to me. And so I'm sitting there, and Kathy at that time was my executive assistant. And I said, hey, Ward, how would you like to be the city clerk? And she said, sure, why not? So she was a natural after years of working in the city manager's office as well as serving the city council. It was just a natural fit. And, you know, she took the guesswork out of the city clerk position. So, Kathy, you set the standard for service here in Dana Point. I know when I pick up the phone at 7 o'clock in my office, you'll probably pick your phone up in your office at 7 o'clock and you'll always have an answer. So, again, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, my family, the city. we are truly better off for having you here as part of our team. So when Mayor Bartlett was talking to me and said, well, you know, we need to start recognizing some very important people, yours was the first one that came to mind. So, Kathy, congratulations.
Madam Mayor, the City Council, it's been and all the public and staff that I work with that are truly amazing. So yes, it's been, this is my 25th year, so I'm one of the 3 in the 25s, and it's truly a pleasure to work with everybody that I work with. Amazing citizens, wonderful council. I can't tell you, the 25 years is, it's just seems like it's so quick. In fact, it's my daughter's 21st birthday today, so there you go. Time flies. And Fran was here when she took over my position when I was having Allison. So 21 years today, Fran. Anyway, it is my pleasure, and just looking forward to continuing working with everybody. And it's been a real pleasure. I know working with Lisa and Stephen, who their last term is. I mean, that just seems like yesterday.
I know it does. It's by too fast.
Thank you so much.
We have a... For Employee of the Month, Kathy Ward has been employed by the City of Dana Point since November 2nd of 1989. I won't read all the whereas clauses, but basically tell you that she has been with the city a long time. She came on board in various capacities, and she's now a certified municipal clerk. That happened on April the 30th of 2008. You've also earned the designation of Master Municipal Clerk, and you work tirelessly to encourage and provide training opportunities to the staff here at the city, and we appreciate everything you've done. On behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Dana Point, we congratulate you on being the Employee Business of the Month. Congratulations. And next, we have our Capistrano Valley Boys and Girls Club's Youth of the Year, Michelle Alexander. This young woman is so special. I attended the event at the Boys and Girls Club a couple of months ago, and it was amazing to hear her life story and what she's been able to accomplish. She's just a remarkable young woman who has an extremely bright future. Michelle, if you could come forward, bring your family, and I'd like to have James Littlejohn and Nicole Watson as well. James, why don't you say a few words also?
You know, when you give me this microphone, it's not just a few words. But no, thank you, Mayor, City Council, for having us here to recognize Michelle tonight. Michelle has been with us, and she'll say a few words later, for almost 11 years with us since she was 6 years of age. And so as the pastor was talking about in his prayer today, it reminded me of Michelle and some of the things that she has gone through in her lifetime. So we're just so happy to have you guys continue to support the Boys and Girls Club the way you guys support us through all these years, and thank you again for having us.
Right. Would you like to say a few words?
Do I say stuff right now? Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank you all for having me here and speak, and as James said, for supporting the Boys and Girls Club and believing in young youth as myself. So I don't know how, I'm just gonna like turn in circles. Okay. I was asked to give a speech of what the Boys and Girls Club has done for me, how it has impacted me. So I'm gonna give my speech, and I'll just do that just now. 2003. 2003, when I pushed open the glass doors of the Boys and Girls Club of Capistrano Valley, was the beginning of the rest of my life. At the club, I learned that failure was not an option, and you were going to succeed. At the club, I learned that if you work hard, it will pay off in the end. At the club, I learned that if you set your mind to it, you can do anything. At the club, I learned that every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. Hello, my name is Michelle Alexander, and I am a senior at San Juan Hills High School, and I am headed for the college life. If you would have known me before 2003, when I was a young child, you would not expect me to be on the college route. If you would come visit me in one of the 16 places that I lived in during the first 6 years of my life, you would have seen how I lived, such as houses filled with mold, carpets that soiled, and kitchens that were filled with feces from small animals that came in and out of the holes around the household that were not built that well, which made it cold at night. Although the cold never really bothered me that much, my mom, brother, and I all slept in the same bed, which kept us warm. My family's financial situation was extremely tight, causing us to share one bedroom in a small house with other families. At 6 years old, I was offered drugs and alcohol and witnessed violence. My life, at such a young age, was headed down a dangerous path in which I had no control over. The police and social services visited my brother and I daily because my mom and sister were known by the authorities for their drug abuse and fighting. My brother and I were left alone in this world to survive, not knowing when we were going to get taken away. My life changed 11 years ago when I pushed open the glass doors of the Boys and Girls Club of Capistrano Valley. Over half my life has been spent at the club, making it the only consistent place I could call home, allowing me not to worry about having somewhere safe to go, someone to talk to, or even having someone pushing me beyond my own limits. These character traits were taught to me through the many programs the Boys and Girls of Capo Valley had to offer, such as RBI softball, education center, and tutoring. Without these programs, I wouldn't be able to believe in myself and have the kind of self-confidence that I have now. With the self-assurance that I gained, I was able to try out for the high school softball team, in which I have played for 4 years and am now a varsity player. I learned what teamwork was about. See, for 6 years of my life, I had to protect my brother Mikey. Mikey is now a club kid. I learned what it was meant to be a team. The club staff were my positive role models, my rock. They were there with me every step of the way. I didn't have to worry about them leaving my side. My family's financial situation is still tight till this day, causing us to sleep in the same bed and rent one room. But because of the Boys and Girls Club of Capistrano Valley, I know I have a bright future ahead of myself. June 24th, I will be the first one in my family to graduate high school, smiling, holding my diploma in my hand, wearing my cap and gown, knowing that none of this would be possible without the help of the Boys and Girls Club of Capistrano Valley. If it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club, I wouldn't be headed down the path in which I am headed for now. Success. My name is Michelle Alexander, and I'm extremely proud to say I am a Boys and Girls Club kid. Thank you.
As you can see, Michelle is truly a shining example of how the Boys and Girls Clubs of Capistrano Valley can transform lives. It is so important to have and support these organizations in our community because they make such a big difference. So we have a certificate for you, Michelle. And I think you've pretty well covered just about everything on here. So, let's see. What can I add here? You've been really thorough. I can add, now therefore, I, Lisa Bartlett, Mayor of the City of Dana Point, do hereby congratulate Michelle Alexander for being selected the Capistrano Valley Boys and Girls Club's 2013 Youth of the Year and recognize and honor her for her sound character, leadership skills, and willingness to give back to the community. Congratulations. We are so proud of you. For just a second, I want to give all of you one of our pins here. It is our 25th anniversary in Dana Point, so we have special 25th anniversary pins. So those of you who stay to the end of our lengthy meeting tonight, you can come up and grab one of the pins. Or if we have an intermission, there you go. Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations. And at this time, we have another special presentation for Eagle Scout Brantley Griffith. If we could have Brantley come up with your family, please. Okay. Brantley has attained that very special level in scouting to become an Eagle Scout. And very small percentage of scouts actually ever get to that level. So we're very proud of your efforts. I was a Girl Scout in my youth, and I know how difficult it is to earn every single one of those badges. So to get to the level of Eagle Scout is really quite an accomplishment, and we are very proud of your efforts and congratulate you. So congratulations, Brantley. Say a few words and introduce your parents, please.
I'd just like to thank my parents, my dad, Peter, my mom, Lisa, and also my friends who helped me on the project and who were with me in scouting, and my mentors that I had that really helped me succeed, you know, and helped me develop the leadership that I could have, but also helped me develop as a person.
Can you tell us about your project?
So what I did for my project was I built 3 benches at my church in Laguna Beach, and I basically they had this garden there that they had these benches that they wanted to put in, so I said, oh, I'll do that. So I decided to come up with some designs for them, you know, that each one was a little bit different. One of them was shaped like skimboards, another one was shaped like a big sun, and then the third one was shaped more like a surfboard. And so I came up with these designs, had talked with my mentor about it, Rick Wallace, and we just came up with a plan, bought the materials, and I had, you know, to ask my friends and other people that I knew, you know, could you help me with this project? So they agreed, and we built these together. And I think it was a really great experience. It taught me a whole lot about how to lead people, and it taught me a lot, you know, about how to manage effectively a project. And overall, I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped.
Congratulations. Certificate of recognition for you as well. The percentage, 2%, only 2% of all Boy Scouts ever earned the rank of Eagle Scout, so that's really quite an accomplishment. And we've talked about your project here. You're in troop number 772 in Laguna Niguel, and you've been in there since 7th grade. And let's see. You're also an AP Scholar with honors, varsity letterman on the cross-country team, varsity hurdler on the track team, orchestra viola section leader, and president of the Junior Achievement Club. So you've got quite a list of accomplishments there at such a young age. Okay. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Bartlett, Mayor of Dana Point, give to you the award for the Certificate of Recognition for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout as a member of the Orange County Council Boy Scout Troop 772. Congratulations, Brantley. get you a pen? Oh, cool. Oh, there you go. Grab one. One for you. Okay. And you too. Great. Congratulations. Okay. We will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any items to be removed by staff?
None this evening, Mayor Bartlett.
Okay. By the public?
Number 16, please.
Number 16. Okay. And by the City Council?
Number 10, please.
Okay. So, and item number 10. All right. Okay, do we have a motion to?
I'll move the balance.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Sure.
And that passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item number 10 on the consent calendar. Would you like a staff report, Councilmember
Just a
Breaux?
brief one, please.
Okay. Mike, could you please provide a quick summary?
Thanks, Doug. Before you is the fiscal year 2013-14 budget status report. Happy to report that our revenues year-to-date through January are up again, consistent with the last 2 years since the recession. Our hotel occupancy tax is up about $450,000 through those first 7 months. Expected to not achieve the same level of incremental increase over last year, but we do expect to exceed budget, and we've got a budget adjustment in here to increase it by $175,000. Property tax is also going pretty strong and just a little bit above budget. We're asking to increase it about $125,000. On the expenditure side, we are on pace with our budget. We've got some cleanup items in here. We had some new auditors come in last year that had a different view of some of our accounting treatments for some of our newer activity related to the Headlands environmentally sensitive habitat area endowment and the like, and also with our hotel, the Tourism Business Improvement District accounting. They've had us put it in a special revenue fund, which we did convert at June 30 of last year, and I'm just cleaning up the budget for that in this report. And beyond that, we've got funding requested for the associate planner position that the council directed us to fill at the joint City Council Planning Commission meeting in January. And we've also got an enormous amount of workload over in Public Works right now, and we're asking for a $60,000 budget adjustment to contract for some additional senior civil engineering work. We've also mentioned in here that we're going to be monitoring that workload. This was a position we defunded late last year when it became vacant. We took the savings and put it into the first phase of the town center project, but it's looking like it's catching up with us, and we may come back and ask to fund that position. But at this point, we're asking for some outside contract work. Overall, our fund balance, we had expected, our budgeted fund balance in the original budget was about $13 million in the general fund. Right now, we're projecting it's closer to $18 million to finish this year. That includes the $3.625 million from the sale of Villa Canyon, some savings we saw at the end of last year that we started this year with. So overall, everything's looking good at this point.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Just one comment and one clarification. On page 11 of the report, this is the comment. I'm glad to see that staff calls the T-bid taxes. That was a bone of contention there for a little while. In the middle, it says T-bid taxes.
That's an error on our part.
That's an error.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Breaux. We'll be sure to correct it.
That's a discussion for another day. The main reason I pulled this is on page 2, the very last paragraph. It says, staff plans on returning to the council in June with updates on revenue and expenditure projections for fiscal year 15, along with budget recommendations and adjustments for next fiscal year, including funding options for Del Prado phase of the town center projects. Can I surmise from that you'll be coming back to us in June with the Del Prado?
Absolutely. And why that coincides with June is Mr. Fowler has assured me that Phase 1 will be completed by October 1st. Just nod your head in the affirmative motion, Captain. Thank you. And so my question to him was, okay, if we do that, when do we need to go out and put it out to bid? And he was saying June. So that coincides when we would be putting that out to bid, having the discussions on how to fund it. If the council so directs, Mr. Killebrew is working with Brad and myself to identify those funds, and so we'll be able to honor any direction that the council provides us at that time.
Well, great. I was pleased to read that in the report, and with that, I'll move the item.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion and second. Please cast your votes.
It's flashing.
Okay, and that item passes 5-0. We now move on to item number 16. If we could have a brief staff report, please.
Absolutely, Mayor Bartlett. As the council is aware, we're moving forward with the Town Center project post-haste. As a result, we're identifying certain scopes of work that need to be resolved in real time. So what we did was worked with then Mayor Stephen Weinberg to create working groups. I know Mr. Bro was working on one of the working groups, as was Mr. Schofel on a discrete segment, and I know Mr. Olvera was working with then Mayor Weinberg and myself and some staff members on this important feature to keep the Town Center project moving on schedule. So I want to thank you all for playing your part in these working groups. What we have before you tonight is a recommendation to approve the subject concept and then authorize Public Works to proceed with design and construction documents by working with 30th Street Architects. With that, Brad and I and Mike will be happy to respond to any questions the council may have.
Okay, questions from council at this time? Okay, we do have one request to speak on this item. Keith Johannes, if you could state your name and city of residence, please.
Yes, my name is Keith Johannes. I'm a 45-year resident of Dana Point. Lived here long enough to see the Coast Highway in two directions earlier. I have just some concerns about the signage. The first one is that in the Dana Point Town Center Guides on page 19, it talked about public signage should be of a unified design. This, to me, kind of looks like it might not meet that kind of criteria. The second concern I have for this is really my major concern, is that the Lantern District sign appears to be in the wrong place. It appears to be headed right into Del Prado, where it is, and that then will look like Del Prado is the only part of the Lantern District. The history of the lanterns and the Coast Highway are long and colorful. Back in July 18, 1929, the governor of California came down to Dana Point to both open what was then called Roosevelt Highway, and then at the same day, he flipped the switch to turn the lanterns on in all of the district of the Lantern District. So the history is there to make sure that I would like to make sure that the Coast Highway position is very clearly designated from that direction as part of what is Lantern District. So that what concerns me. It looks right now like it doesn't do that. I've also got one other thing to bring up. The Preservation Committee has asked me to call to the Council's attention on page 60 of the Town Center Plan on historic preservation is to maintain and enhance the character of the historic structures in Town Center and Lantern District. Item 3 calls for an update of the Dana Point Historic Resources Inventory every 5 years. I believe the last historic survey was done in 1997. And it does say in there also with the help of the Historic Society that these could go on. And I was hoping that we would have some of these other historic events that are also taking place be part and the Historical Society be included in some of the discussions before it reaches this stage. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we'll bring this back to the council. Council members, questions, comments on this item? Okay. Councilmember Schoeffel?
Okay, so I will prevail upon my colleague, Mr. Olvera. Can you respond to Mr. Johannes's comments and concerns that he raised as a member of the working group? So, knowing nothing about the specific points he raised, I'm confident with your background in this area, you probably know quite a bit about it. So,
the working group consists of, at that time, Mayor Weinberg, myself, John Tilton from the Planning Department, George Lujan from his restaurant, and representative from Majestic and the Chamber of Commerce. Did I get it all? And the architect, and Brad Fowler, and the architect from 30th Street Architects. That was the working group. The conversation went back and forth for a number of times on what to call it. Different names were proposed. And finally, the one that stuck was the Lantern District, to coincide with the lanterns that were originally installed in Dana Point. I might clarify that actually, when the governor was down there to flip the switch, it was only the lanterns that went down Coast Highway, because they were the only lanterns that had a colored globe on the top of the post. And that colored globe corresponded with the color of the street of the lantern. So, yes, what Mr. Johannes is talking about, the Lantern District has not changed, as the town center plan shows that it includes both Del Prado and Coast Highway. Now you got to go back a little bit more in history. Del Prado was the original street that went through Dana Point before Coast Highway was built. It went straight across, and it dead-ended at Golden Lantern. You had to hang a hard left turn to go up to the tip of the canyon, and then make another right turn to come down the coastline towards the harbor. When the county did a beautification improvement project and development was beginning in the town center area, businesses were now being built on Del Prado. The problem of a lot of the business owners was the traffic, which is two ways at that time, was all concentrated on Pacific Coast Highway. So the businesses on Del Prado found themselves new shops but zero traffic. So in working with the county, the local business, before we were a city, the local businesses ended up convincing the county to change the two streets, a couplet, to each street being one way, and punching through the rest of Del Prado from Golden Lantern to Coast Highway. So we had basically a couplet effort. After we became a city and we were looking at that town center plan, which began from concept 25 years ago, it started with a redevelopment effort. Redevelopment was chosen not to be the tool to implement the town center project, the infrastructure changes. As we went through a whole bunch of 15 years of city planning, designing, and public hearings, one of the things that was discussed and voted on the public hearings was to return the streets to be two-way streets. I was against that idea. I still don't think that's the right idea because of the business traffic. That's why we went to one-way streets. But the consensus then was to go to two-way streets. So now the major flow of the traffic will be going down Coast Highway. We need to ensure, and the pedestrian-friendly atmosphere that's being implemented as a change in the result of the town center development plan to be a pedestrian-friendly environment. Now, once you put in a median down Del Prado and sidewalks and stop signs, you ended up with wanting to make sure that we still had business traffic that would know to go down Del Prado as well. So, as we all agreed that Lantern District would show that there is a business district for people coming into Dana Point from the north side, up coast, and going through, knowing that there is a business district there. Their plan normally would be probably just to stay on Coast Highway. So we plan on having a lot of signage to try and make it, that area available to the businesses. And the rest of it is, so we're now to that point.
Okay. Councilmember Schoeffel.
Yeah, okay, so that's very interesting, and thank you for that. Why, with respect to Mr. Johannes' specific point, why is he correct or incorrect when he says the Lantern District should be showcased as both the PCH and the Del Prado corridor? I understand the reason the working group chose the alignment. I think you explained that very clearly. Should there be, might it be possible to consider doing a uniform signage throughout the district, meaning the PCH corridor and the Del Prado corridor, so that anywhere you are along that, you know that you're in the Lantern District?
That's already in the plan. The plan that has been presented by Roma Group includes signage on both streets. The fact that the whole, as you look at any town center map, the couplet area, the signage design is to reinvent, and these posters that you see on the back of the council chambers are going to be on all the streets, showing signage of different viewpoints as well as points of interest. So, yes, it is going to be not just Del Prado, it will be on both streets.
And I think Mr. Johannes' comment specifically had to do with the entry feature.
Yeah.
And I think that was a concern because it was to be placed, according to the plan here, on Del Prado, and PCH was sort of left out. Is that correct? So that's something that we need to discuss.
Okay.
Is there, and you would know better than I and the working group would know better, but is there a way to announce that both corridors are part of the Lantern District at that juncture?
How would
Or
you
is that
propose
just too
that?
big a-
The
don't
answer is yes.
Okay.
So you're telling me that there is none now?
Oh,
Well, it's not being proposed as...
Actually, I wasn't saying that at all. What I was saying was that the commenter said that, and I was just...
Well, you're speaking for the commenter.
No, I was noting the commenter's comment and just asking a question. The commenter said only Del Prado is featured with the entry monument, and I'm just asking, is it possible to feature both streets?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me, if I
Okay.
may.
Councilmember Breaux?
Being originally from Connecticut, and what I sense from the town center plan is, on the East Coast, you have thoroughfares and business districts. So if you're meant to get through town in an expedited manner, you take the thoroughfare. If you want to go the slow route, you take the business district. And so my understanding of what is proposed here is sort of from Boris's plan in the town center plan of the East Coast, thoroughfare and business district. That's what I got from the entire town center plan. So I think that's what this design is trying to outlay.
So maybe the real question I'm trying to get to is if you have a two-way, as the alignment's going to change to two-way, at least it's slated to change, at that end of the thoroughfare, what's going to happen at the other end of the thoroughfare? Will there be a similar sign on the Pacific Coast Highway side, or will this be the only entry feature to the Lantern District?
There will be one at the down coast side of the couplet.
And will that be on the PCH side?
It'll be in the middle of the couplet.
So it'll be in the middle of the couplet, so it would showcase both Del Prado
Yes.
as well as PCH?
Yes.
Okay, well, that seems, and will it look like this?
No.
So we don't know but it'll look like something that announces the entry to the Lantern District?
This has happened before my time when prior city council decided to call the town center, and erected a sign before it was even approved to start a project on town center. And a lot of people have complained about the font, the looks of that sign. So that is being upgraded to something that's more respectable for the Lantern District.
If I could, Brad, wasn't also part of the working group that it's contemplated that as the town center gets, or the Lantern District gets built out, and we have the through route and the business route aspect, that there was to accommodate through traffic on PCH in greater numbers. That will remain open, but the contemplation is to be able to physically shut Del Prado down for festivals and what have you, correct?
Yes.
And so the thought being is this would be a grand entry feature from the north into the Lantern District to try and give it a festive sense of arrival, if you will. And that is true. There has been some discussion about redesigning the sign at the southern end of the couplet at some point in the future and bringing that back to the council, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, with that in mind, it would seem that the issue of highlighting the entire district may well be taken care of at that point. So I understand that that's the way staff is going with this, the working group is going with it, and with that understanding, I'm okay with this.
Okay, could you also add that we now update our historic resources inventory?
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
So I would move the item with
I'll
that,
second.
with that addition.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Please cast your votes. And that item passes 5-0. We now move on to public comments.
Mayor Bartlett, if I could just make the council aware, as if they aren't already, there's about 50 young people out in the ante area who would like to come and speak on an item. I asked Mr. Rose to go out. We have occupancy issues in here, and I know Carl will remind me of those very soon if we violate them. But having said that, I think, Mike, you were able to see if we could get six representatives to come in and represent the group. We want to acknowledge that there's 50 young people outside, and so they have 6 people, and they filled out speaking slips and what have you. Okay, very good.
Okay, well, at this time, the city clerk will read the titles and the ordinances listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one introduction and first reading of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Dana Point, California, adopting the Lantern District Development Impact Fee and amending the municipal code by adding Chapter 4.30 relating to public facility development impact fees. Thank you.
All right, public comments. There will be a 3-minute limit per person and an overall time limit of 15 minutes for this public comments portion of the agenda. At the mayor's discretion, the balance of public comments will be heard after the new business portion of the agenda. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. State law prohibits the City Council from taking action on a specific item unless it appears on the posted agenda. The City Clerk will distribute any handouts that you have. We have 6 speaker slips regarding the skate park of Dana Point subject matter. If you're out in the ante room and you've got a speaker slip submitted, if you could come in at this time. Our first speaker will be Brandon Phillips.
Yep, they're kids.
And if you could state your name and city of residence, please. Thank you. And you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Mayor Bartlett, council members. My name is Brandon Phillips. I currently reside in Laguna Niguel, right on the border by Ocean Ranch. Basically, what we have noticed as a community is that skateboarding, surfing, everything, board sports, action sports in general it's what we live with in our everyday lives. Just a few points I would like to make real quickly is the mission statement on our Dana Point website. The City of Dana Point encourages community involvement and is committed to develop and ensure the highest possible quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. Provide a safe and healthy environment within a sound economic atmosphere. Provide an efficient and effective group or government which is open and responsive to the needs of the community and works for the benefit of all. So with that said, we have kids all over the place, as our pastor prayed for this at the beginning of the meeting. Age groups from 13 into the mid-20s are passing away, and it's stated that there's no limited to no organized adult, young adult organizations from these age groups. Majority of these kids, once they find their niche, they fit in within these kind of action sports realms, and they find their voice, they find their lifelong friends, passions, and it leads them into careers, just like myself. We just ask that it's considered, it's open to talk about. We want to be a fruitful community, and especially these kids. We don't have any negative or we don't have any sort of discord towards the society or the rules or anything like that. We just want to voice our opinions and our needs, and we think it's about time to do that. So with that, I thank you guys.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Darla Phillips. Please state your name and city of residence.
Darla Phillips, on the border of Laguna Niguel and Dana Point, right up Golden Lantern. I have 3 grown boys, 30, 27, and 25. Dana Point is really dear to my heart. My grandparents were here in the early 50s, made their life, brought us up, raised us. I was privileged to raise my children here, and they loved outdoor activities, which we encourage our children so much to do nowadays with all the computer technology and all the social media. They don't get outside too much. They're losing their identity. As the pastor said, we need to help our children find their true identity through activities, healthy activities. The Boys and Girls Club, my boys were a part of it. Amazing organization. Sorry. I just seen my boys go through so much as young men and children, and they didn't have a safe place to go play, really. As the community was growing, we got these great parks as a master plan community, but they love to do street hockey and skateboard, and they got hurt. There was so many near misses by cars. The other wonderful thing about skateboarding I found was with autism. It was a great sport hobby that they could use as an emotion for autism, and Autism Speaks, which is a great organization. The kids help each other out skateboarding, and they don't have a safe environment here in our city to provide something like that. I just see this little area of our children that can play, that's a safe place for them, that they won't get hurt, and we could really give back a lot to our community if we gave something to them that they could really be safe in. I thank you guys so much for being open and willing to consider this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Johnson.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Daniel Johnson. I'm a current resident of Laguna Niguel, California. But as I'm 22 years old, I've lived in this gorgeous community my entire life. I'm extremely blessed to be here. But I grew up here pretty practically in Dana Point, surfing and skateboarding, hanging out with the community, also working, within the Chamber of Commerce. And luckily for me, I've been working within the action sports industry since I was about 14 years old, within the retail stores here at Dana Point, and also teaching surf lessons down at Doheny State Beach every summer since about the age of 16. And from a business standpoint, I understand you guys are looking, for something that's profitable, and I believe that action sports in our community is something that, really drives our economy, especially with today's youth. With that being said, I would like it for to be considered. It's a healthy way to get kids out of trouble. Also keep activity, and for the youth and for people of all ages to embrace the community that we live in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ben Klassen.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for having all of us here. We really appreciate the forum and the opportunity to speak. As you're aware, we're here to discuss the proposed construction of a skate park in Dana Point. This support would require direct participation on behalf of the welfare of the youth of the city, and I'm encouraged that that has been a theme here tonight. However, this is perhaps a slightly different way than has been performed in the past. As I said, my name is Ben Klassen. I work in the media and action sports industry for a large publication company. I see firsthand the benefits of skateboarding in youth culture. The interesting thing is I see no difference in the kids and families participating in skateboarding and surfing compared to those participating in traditional sports. However, there is a major difference in the support these two groups receive from local government here in Dana Point. Dana Point is a cultural epicenter in the action sports industry. Since surfing came to California, Killer Dana played host to a world-class surf break, stimulating the local economy by encouraging permanent residence in small part due to the ocean and the lifestyle attached to it. Because California has always been on the forefront of this culture, it's easy for what some consider traditional culture, media, and sporting to discount the participation in these types of activities and perhaps attempt to remove the legitimacy of action sports play in our communities. Clearly, sorry, I lost my spot there. There we are. Clearly, this is not the case. The surfing events that take place in our county regularly bring in tens of millions of dollars in revenue each year. From a microeconomic standpoint, these figures are able to provide income to smaller beach communities that do not have access to the larger scale sporting events that necessitate a stadium environment. Due to the creative, often open format of action sports, the earning potential to participate, encourage, and perhaps create events such as the Lower Pro in San Clemente and the U.S. Open of Surf in Huntington Beach means community and industry coordination bringing additional profits back into the city. The other benefit is the kids. I know that you're well aware of the benefit of supporting youth. It's something that Dana Point has been doing very, very clearly for decades. However, we are here to bring to your attention a sector within the community that is being neglected. This neglect leads kids who are not interested in team sports to perform their chosen board sport outside of a safe and regulated space, making it more dangerous for everyone. Additionally, the suppression... Out of time?
You've got 30 seconds.
Okay, cool. Game show style. And lack of safety opens them up to feeling like they have nothing else to do, increasing the chances of trouble elsewhere and creating additional headaches. These are normal kids who just want to play in a safe environment like any other kid in California and have yet to be able to, at least here in Dana Point. With surfing, the infrastructure appears naturally and less disturbed. Skateboarding requires direct effort, deliberate choices on your part and the council's part to support a park financially. Thank you very much.
Ben, for the record, could you state your city of residence, please?
San Clemente, California.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Jenny Abana. Please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Jenny, and I live in San Juan Capistrano. I am a manager at Jack Surfboards in Dana Point, and I've been there for at least 7 years. And I've seen these kids come, and literally they skateboard out in front of our shop all day, especially during the summertime. They have nowhere to go, no safe place to go, so they come to our place because we don't kick them out, we don't say anything. We have them come and, they can skate as long as they want. I feel like that there really does need to be a safe place for them to skateboard and to have fun in Dana Point. So, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Kenworthy. Please state your name and city of residence, please.
Yeah, my name is Jason Kenworthy, and I live in Dana Point. Thanks for having us. I've lived here for 37 years, and we need a place to skate. When I was a kid, my dad would drive me to Del Mar every weekend. That was the only place where there was a skate park. And here, all these years later, I'm driving my kids to Encinitas every weekend, just so they can have a place to play. I look around the town, I see all sorts of parks, and especially there's one by my house that's rarely getting used, and giving a little place for the kids to, do what they like to do, which is skateboard, would be awesome. If you go to these other towns like San Clemente, Encinitas, Carlsbad, all places with skate parks, you'd see that they're totally packed every weekend. I mean, you have to go early in the morning, otherwise it's really crowded. So I think if we had something here, it would be it would be, used and utilized like way more than some of the parks are now. So whatever we can do, we're all willing as a community to come together and make this possibility a reality. So if you guys support, we hope to get it done.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is Michael Martin. Michael Martin, are you out there? Okay, great. State your name and city of residence, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Martin. I reside in Laguna Niguel. I'm actually not here for the skate park, so I don't know if I'm out of turn. Oh, okay. Anyways, I'm here to voice some concerns about the gate access at Strands Beach. I'm a local business owner and a Chamber of Commerce member. My wife and I and another local business owner were on Sunday walking down to the main access on the beach towards the evening time. And as we got down to the main beach gate, the security guard drives by and very curtly says, "Gate's closed. Turn around." So we turn around and we head back up, and we're going back up to the main gate up by the parking lot, and we get there, and that one's locked too. So we were kind of stuck inside the Strands development. We tried to find the security guard, couldn't find him. He zipped around one time, didn't stop for us. We didn't have phones on us because we were in beach attire, wetsuits, and bathing suits. We got to the main gate, and we couldn't figure out there was no way to exit there. We ended up having to walk through the golf cart tunnel to the backside to the Strands development, and ended up having to climb a fence to get out. It's kind of comical, and it's kind of just a unfortunate series of events. But afterwards, it really kind of made us wonder, it's a good thing we didn't have any children with us. My wife's not pregnant. That could have been really unfortunate, for somebody that was, not in our conditions. I was under the impression that the gates weren't supposed to be there, or they were ruled that they weren't supposed. They were supposed to be taken down or opened. It just makes it really difficult to access it, especially when we're at a point where the gates are closing well before it's even close to dark. There's a lot of people who are still down at the beach who don't know what to do, how to get out, and it really left us in an unfortunate position to be stuck wandering around the Strands development. It took us 45 minutes from the time we parked to actually get to the beach. And I mean, that's the time that someone can drive from Riverside to Huntington Beach. And it was just a shame. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Scott Peterson. Please state your name and city of residence.
Hi, my name is Scott Peterson, and I reside in Laguna Niguel. And I'm part of a large group of homeowners at Niguel Beach Terrace and Dana Point that are requesting that the city extend the enforcement for the short-term rentals from May 1st to at least September 1st. Because of the complexity of the issue, we've broken our presentation into different segments, and so I'm going to be kicking it off. And I assured them that it's only content, and keeping it below 3 minutes is what matters, and you don't get any extra points for eye contact. So especially after what Michelle gave us, it was wonderful. So I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to jump into what I would like to share with you, and hopefully I'll get done before the buzzer sounds. I grew up here in Orange County, and after graduating from college, I left California to become a pilot in the United States Air Force. I knew, however, that if I wanted to come back, I'd better invest in a local property, or else I might find myself priced out of the market like I'd seen so many others who left our beautiful coast and could not afford to come home. So nearly 30 years ago, my wife Susan and I purchased our market rate unit at Niguel Beach Terrace. Over those many years, we've appreciated the tremendous flexibility the unit offers. At first, we leased our unit to long-term renters while I was stationed in Indiana. Later, when I was deployed to Desert Storm, I moved my family into our unit so that they could have the support of our local families. It's also provided great accommodations for our extended family that visits us constantly from all over the U.S. But most recently, we've operated it as a vacation rental. And that's why I stand before you today. I, along with many other Niguel Beach Terrace homeowners, are requesting an enforcement extension from May 1st back to at least September 1st so that we can adequately address this very complex and important issue. We very much want to amend our CC&Rs in a way that benefits our entire community so that we are in good standing with the city and also our neighbors. Toward this end, I've provided you hard copies documenting what our group has accomplished to date and a timeline showing that we are moving forward. We first gathered outside these very doors out of necessity after the January 21st City Council meeting, where we were informed vacation rental licenses would not be issued to Niguel Beach Terrace owners until we get our CC&Rs or our CC&Rs amended to accommodate the short-term rentals. Since then, we've organized, we've educated ourselves and others about the issue, and we've extended an outreach to the community to get their feedback. Now we're shifting gears in efforts to retain an attorney to help us draft an amendment to the CC&Rs so that it can effectively regulate short-term rentals in a way that benefits our entire community. Our hope is that you will take into consideration...
Got 30 seconds.
Our hope is that you will take into consideration our earnest efforts as proof that we are moving forward as quickly as possible. Once you have an opportunity to review the information I provided, you will see that we are on track and that we have accomplished a great deal in a very short time. Please remember we have achieved this progress while still attending to our families, careers, and many other responsibilities. Obviously, we've placed a high priority on this. Consequently, you have every reason to believe that we will fully honor the additional time you allot us to finish this very important endeavor. Thank you for the extra time.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Colaco.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the time. My name is Jason Colasso, and I'm a Dana Point resident. I live in Dana Point, and I also own a home at Niguel Beach Terrace. And I'm here today to express my deep frustration with a letter I received last week from the city requiring that we amend our CC&Rs by May 1st. This is simply not enough time to get through an amendment process. Until we were told on January 15th that our vacation rental permit applications were going to be rejected, we had no idea there was an issue with our CC&Rs. When I purchased my home in 2007, my realtor called into our property, the property management company. They told us we were allowed to have vacation rentals. I came to a board meeting at Niguel Beach Terrace, and they also told me that you could have vacation rentals. I actually even came here to City Council, the City Hall, and they said that vacation rentals had operated in Niguel Beach Terrace probably before the city was incorporated. So I assumed that they were okay. There's a single term in our CC&Rs that state that our homes cannot be used for transient or hotel purposes. Nowhere in the CCNRs do we define what transient means. Because it was unclear, our HOA received legal advice and then amended our rules and regulations, clarifying the definition in 2006. Subsequently, 100 people turned their homes into vacation rentals. That's what we have today. So it's very important to note that there isn't a single law, there hasn't been a single lawsuit questioning the amendment once it passed, nor has the city done anything to prohibit vacation rentals. Our board has also received very few complaints. So that brings us to today. We understand that the city would like us to amend our CCNRs, and we're working in earnest to do that. We aren't questioning the decision. It's important to reiterate that we only became aware of this issue in mid-January, and thus had very little time to organize ourselves. Typically, a vote like this takes at least 9 months to coordinate, especially in a complex so big as ours. May is thus highly unrealistic and simply unfair. I would estimate that there are about 1,000 bookings that span past May. These people have purchased airline tickets, they've locked in vacations, and they're planning to come to Dana Point. It seems awful what we're doing to them. And this will paint our city in a very negative light. Since our city has passed an ordinance approving vacation rentals, it's hard to understand why the city has taken such a hard stance here. I would ask that you consider extending the deadline to October to allow us enough time to complete our CCNR amendment process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Ken King. Please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Ken King, and I am a resident of Dana Point, Miguel Beach Terrace, for 31 years. I want to thank the city attorney for setting the May 1st as the deadline for illegal vacation rentals at Miguel Beach Terrace will be enforced at that time. I encourage the city to maintain the date and enforce its ordinance. At the City Council meeting in September of 2012, the Council heard points of view on all those in favor or against vacation rentals. The Miguel Beach Terrace Association president and its legal counsel spoke in favor of vacation rentals, and in particular why they were legal at Miguel Beach Terrace. The city attorney responded to the City Council that Miguel Beach Terrace CCNRs did not allow transient or hotel uses, which the courts have determined to be rentals of 30 days or less. This was in 2012, September. When the council approved the vacation ordinance in May of 2013, the council indicated that they would respect the CCNRs of all homeowners associations. At the January 15th meeting this year, the council reiterated its affirmation to respect the CCNRs and encourage Miguel Beach Terrace owners to resolve their differences in regards to vacation rentals. After almost a year, we are still waiting to vote on the amendment to the CCNRs. Despite the ordinance being in effect for almost a full year, as of today's date, you can still Google and make vacation rental bookings at 56 plus Miguel Beach Terrace vacation rental sites. I encourage the city to reject any tactic to delay enforcement of the vacation rental ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Corinne Conklin. Please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, it's Corinne Conklin, and I'm a resident of Laguna Beach. And I am here to really encourage the extension of time with respect to the Miguel Beach Terrace vacation rental. As I said, I'm a resident of Laguna Beach and a new member of the Miguel Beach Terrace community. My husband and I purchased a condo there in 2013, very excited about the prospects of Dana Point and its ongoing vitality. We chose to invest in Dana Point after reading it is one of the healthiest financial municipalities in all of Orange County, and in anticipation of the significant improvements being made there throughout the city. Since buying our condo, we have now embraced the community as we get better acquainted with it. Rather than go into Laguna, we now shop and dine and spend money at numerous businesses here in Dana Point. The Blue Dolphin has the best fried rice combination to feed a family of 4 in a pinch. Jack's Restaurant has great organic food. And Hobie's has always been a favorite for our ocean needs. So I now even do my banking, my grocery shopping in Dana Point rather than go into Laguna. Also, Ace Hardware and Costco has made a killing from us in the past 9 months as we outfit our unit. We've shared our condo already with family, friends, and guests, and we also use it in between for our own retreat when we need a break from our kids. We bought our unit with the idea this would become our home when we retire within the next 10 years. We want to continue to contribute to the success of this community. We would like to have the option to rent our unit as a vacation rental in between our other use needs. We, however, did not receive the letter sent out by the city and only heard about the demands on May 1st deadline last week as a result of the outreach efforts made by a number of Niguel Beach Terrace owners. We're responsible, contributing, and caring citizens, and we encourage the city to please reconsider the May 1st deadline and allow our association more time to make the correct amendments necessary to fulfill the city's requirements. Dana Point's future is bright, and we look forward to being active participants during an exciting period in the city's history. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Cynthia Carroll.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Cynthia Carroll, and I am a 30-year resident of Dana Point and a Niguel Beach Terrace homeowner. In the city's letter dated March 7, 2014, the mandate gave homeowners until May 1st, 2014, to call a vote and change the amendment to our CC&Rs to allow vacation rentals. Respectfully, I would like to ask for your consideration in obtaining an extension from your mandate until September 1st, 2014, for the following reasons. Number one, based upon information I've received from PCM, our Homeowners Association, and the Board of Directors at Niguel Beach Terrace, this process would take 90 days to obtain a quorum and tally the votes. Number two, prior to the election, we need to procure a 5% homeowners' signatures and take the petition to the Niguel Beach Terrace board meeting. Number three, we need time to vet and retain an attorney to draft a new amendment which will contain the correct language and be acceptable to our homeowners' attorney. Number four, to ensure as many voices as possible are heard and to deal with voter apathy, we need to be able to reach homeowners and inform them in an upcoming election. To that end, the public contact information we have obtained is over 50% obsolete, inaccurately, largely due to owners shutting down their landlines. It takes more time, but we can do it to reach these owners. Providing us with an extension to September 1st, 2014 would allow for us to write an amendment that is in alignment with the HOA attorney, allow for the voting process to be held within normal, reasonable timeframes, and allow for more of the owners to participate in the vote one way or another. Additionally, I would like to ask for your consideration to extend the vacation rental date to September 1st, 2014. The city's May 1st mandate was a complete surprise to many of us and since then, 75 to 95% owners booked prior to receiving your letter. Keeping the May 1st date forces us to choose between canceling our bookings and potentially being sued for airline flights and ruining family vacations, or being in violation of the city's mandate and receiving harsh consequences. On a personal note, my son, who is a cancer survivor, last graduated from Dana Hills High School. This year, vacation rentals are helping him as a freshman at Harvard University. Helping him fund Harvard University. While we are only one family, it becomes apparent the vast majority of homeowners deeply rely and depend on income and need time to make arrangements. Lastly, extending the vacational rental date to September 1st would be consistent with the time needed to amend our CC&Rs and allow for a natural transition based upon the election results. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Beth Everett. Please state your name and city of residence.
Beth Everett, Laguna Niguel. I am also asking for an extension. While we are trying to resolve our issues, we find ourselves in a terrible bind because of the unrealistic short time we have been given to resolve our issues. Having to cancel the bookings for all the families wanting to visit our beautiful city from all over the world amounts to an utterly difficult and sincerely unfair act that would benefit no one. It would have a disappointingly and perhaps angry feeling about our city that is becoming increasingly favored by visitors from all over the globe. Consequently, we are appealing to your fairness to grant us a more realistic amount of time so that we can bring about fair, effective, and legally binding solutions to benefit all involved and avoid rushed, desperate, and inappropriate solutions that may hurt people from all over the globe. We are respectfully requesting that you consider giving us at least 6 months' time to bring about the appropriate solution to our issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Hardy. Please state your name and city of residence.
Michael Hardy, Newport Beach, California. Mayor and City Council, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Hardy. I'm a Chief Financial Officer and Chief Risk Officer for an insurance company in Irvine, California. I'm also a certified public accountant and a real estate broker. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what my wife and I did. We purchased our property at Niguel Beach Terrace in 2005 as an investment opportunity and have operated our unit as a short-term vacation rental since 2008. Much of my career has been focused on economics, the real estate industry, and making sound financial recommendations to my employers, my colleagues, friends, and acquaintances. And tonight I'd like to share some of my thoughts with each of you. With approximately 80 of the 368 Niguel Beach Terrace condos being operated as an investment property, the vast majority of ownership is currently comprised of long-term and short-term rental units. The long-term rentals are usually rented vacant, month to month, or as a one-year lease, while the short-term units are typically rented for 7 to 14 days, are fully furnished, and generally better maintained, as we are competing as a viable alternative to staying at a hotel. Visitors that stay at short-term rentals are typically more likely to visit local merchants, restaurants, etc., and infuse more revenues into the Dana Point community, and I do not believe that anybody here disputes that point. But let's fast forward 60 to 90 days from now, and the enforcement action is in effect. Maybe 2 or 3 property owners have been fined for operating as a short-term rental. They have to pay a fine, they have to turn away and refund their future bookings, which could extend into the 2015 calendar year, while still having to pay their mortgage, their property taxes, and other operating expenses, and being faced with a very important economic decision. Do I stay or do I go? For those that decide to go, these owners have determined that they cannot afford to convert their property to a long-term rental. Their property is no longer a valuable asset to them. They're not going to put their property up. They're either going to put their property up for sale or they're going to let the bank foreclose on it. Now, magnifying this event by several owners, you could have a tipping effect in our community, which could potentially lead to severe vacancy and other unforeseen issues within the complex. We wish to avoid such an unfortunate occurrence, and many fellow property owners have organized to help expedite the steps needed to amend our CC&Rs, but it does take time to coordinate these efforts. Therefore, we petition the members of the City Council to decisively approve our request for an extension of the enforcement action from May 1st to September 1st to allow adequate time for this process to be accomplished. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Bruce. Please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Chris Bruce. I live in Mission Viejo. I own Dana Party Supplies down in Capo Beach. I'm here tonight because I want to talk about, well, the enlightening experience of being here at the meeting. I can see that there are many positive changes underway here in the city. The changes should result in a strong and attractive city for many years to come. Now, down in Doheny Village, we all know what's happening down there. It's easy to see looking around you. It's not the Lantern District. It's not the Hotel District. It's certainly no tourism district. The problems are not easily solved. There seem to be no efforts underway to make any change down there of any practical value. In order to begin the process of improvement, though, I think that there are two solutions, or two potential solutions, that came to fore at a meeting last week among business owners. One is we'd like to see some sort of a day laborer situation established. Laguna Beach appears to be relatively successful in dealing with this situation and coming up with a way to solve it. The other thing that we would like for the city to seriously consider is putting a sheriff's substation down there. Both of these efforts, we think, could be worked out with property owners down there. There probably is available space where these two simple things could happen, or what seem to us to be simple. I know nothing's simple when it comes to government. But we would like to see those kinds of concrete changes made so we can have a feeling that something's happening down there. We know we're a long way from bricks, mortar, and a planted median. That's not what we're asking for right now. We are asking for these simple changes. We think they will go a long ways towards also promoting safety in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Barron. Please state your name and city of residence.
First, indulge me because it's cold in here, and if I take this off, I'll freeze to death. So, my name is James Barron. I live in Capistrano Beach. I also own a business in Capistrano Beach, the Surfing Cowboy. We've built it out about a year and a half ago. Want to address, she addressed some of the issues. I'll address some other related issues. The issues I want to talk about as it relates to the business community down there, as I would call business multiplier opportunities from the city, and that ties into community events. First of all, I noticed that OCTA funding for a trolley has been established for the city, or been obtained. I looked at the trolley map. There's no stops in Doheny Village for the trolley, at least as listed at the moment. The largest enterprise in Dana Point, which is a church, by the way, is in that area, and I can tell you without exception, everyone down there would like a trolley stop somewhere in Doheny Village, Capistrano Beach. The second, and strictly a rumor, but you have these pedestrian overpasses on the north and south side. Someone said the north overpass is called Make-A-Wish Bridge, and they've never had a chance to make a wish because they've never seen anyone on it. I don't know. But a pedestrian overpass at the end of Doheny Park Road that gives pedestrians an option to go from the park, maybe with a sign that says shops and restaurants or something, could be very helpful. And I've been told that in fact there is something like that has been on the boards for a long time. It's just never been built. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but a little thing like that could be very helpful. The other thing I noticed in the budget, the city has over 23 community events that they actively are engaged in supporting, both budget-wise and so forth. Of those 23 events, not one of them is in Capo Beach. Not one starts, not one ends, not one even is thought of in Capo Beach. 23-0 is a heck of a beating. Just anything to get any kind of support down there could be helpful. I also noticed in the budget there's a $100,000 appropriation for sidewalk repairs. Haven't seen any of those down there. It'd be interesting to be nice to have those. So I think that's about it. We just really, we need to be looked over and not overlooked. And the problem is we've been overlooked for a long time. And for whatever reasons or whatever purposes, we really need your help in changing that. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Chavez. Please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Robert Chavez, Capistrano Beach. I've lived in Capistrano Beach to when I grew up in my family's business on Doheny Park Road. It was the Coast Highway. It was the only road from LA to San Diego. This is before the 5 freeway. So I've watched the whole Capitol Beach going from the time I was born and raised in the El Patio Cafe, which has been there since 1952. I was also a member of the Capistrano Beach Chamber of Commerce when we got the red flag about Costco being taken over by San Juan and we needed to address cityhood, and went through the whole process of Capistrano Beach and Dana Point deciding they would either form cities separately or together, and went through the whole process. 25 years ago approximately, I stood in front of the council, and they were Bill Maratra, Judy Carreri, Mike Eggers, Ellen Cross, Ingrid McGuire, the original council members. And one of the at the Capistrano, at the Recreation District down in Del Obispo, where our original place was packed. One of the first things we wanted to address as a new city from the Capitol Beach side is what are we doing with the Doheny Beach situation with the day laborers, which actually at that time was a lot more intense than it is today. And what I've done here is I've made some copies, and maybe we can get you guys to have copies. These are all historical articles that came out in the newspaper about me listening to a task force evaluation about what was happening down there. I believe you might even have a record of this task force that went down there. They evaluated the situation, finding out where people were coming from to seek work, where people were coming from to pick up the workers. And from that, I got my idea of coming up with this day worker exchange that we had for a while. And it actually kind of worked for a while there. We were actually able to enforce people from acquiring work on the street because we were able to facilitate that with our hiring exchange. There's a thing, you guys even took us out to dinner, to the recognition dinner, for coming up with this idea to help facilitate that problem down there. It's risen its head again because now legally people can stay on the corner whether you've got an alternative for them or not. I still do believe that if we were able to bring back some sort of task force, and I'm not quite in the favor of getting a day worker building, because number one, no one's going to want it. Two, it encourages more people to come there. It works great in Laguna Beach because it's way out on Laguna Canyon Road. It's not in the downtown area. I still think, and you ask people, are you comfortable going to Capitol Beach looking for a day worker? Would you rather have a way to find one on a social media site that we could set up and match people like we did before with a little bit more intricacies as today, and even have reviews on who's a good worker and who isn't? So I encourage you to make copies of some of the historical perspectives that we have here. And again, we don't like being the stepdaughter of Dana Point. We'd like to do something there to keep that Capitol Beach a little bit more part of the big picture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Helen Mashi.
Hi, I'm Helen Mashi. I'm co-owner of Secondhand Treasures in Doheny Village, and I concur with many of the comments that have been made about Doheny Village. I'm not sure what the answer is about keeping a special area for the day laborers, but there does need to be some sort of separation. Many of the businesses there struggle with actually having to clean up in the mornings before we open up our stores when the transients and in that area relieve themselves on our doorsteps. I know this is sort of a long-term project. Some short-term projects that we can do in that area also include beautifying Doheny Village, putting lights on trees. As Jim mentioned, having events in our area. Every time there's an event in Dana Point, business is taken away from Capistrano Beach and dispersed into the rest of the city. And then they come to us in the evening when the event is done, hosting some events, having the trolley stop in our area, lights, sidewalks, It's amazing that some of us have been voted the most popular businesses in Dana Point with so much stacked against us. So Mayor and City Council, we're just asking for your support and getting some of these things accomplished. Thank you.
My name is Steve Stewart. I'm a resident of Dana Point, and I'm here to make some points, different points about Capo Beach. I have a business headquartered in Capo Beach. I was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting last Tuesday. I'm also involved in the organization iHope, and iHope and the feeding organization Welcome In work extensively in Capo Beach. We know the people that produce some of the problems there. We would like to say to the council that we're interested in working with the Homeless Task Force. We think that some coordination among people who have daily experience with homeless people in Capo Beach and the issues that go on with them would facilitate a better atmosphere in Capo Beach, fewer people visible, loitering, fewer sanitation problems. We have some ideas about how to get that done, and we are reaching out to various council members. We would hope that you will come back to us and sit down and listen to our ideas and help us move to a better situation for homeless people in Dana Point, particularly Capo Beach, than we presently have.
At this time, we're going to break for about 10 minutes. Why don't we reconvene at, let's see, 10 till. Okay. Have everyone seated, please. This time, I'd like to reconvene our City Council meeting. We did have one speaker slip that was accidentally overlooked, and I'd like to call up that speaker at this time, Alan Wickstrom. Please state your name and city of residence.
Alan Wickstrom, resident of Dana Point. Tonight I am representing the Monarch Beach Sunrise Rotary Club as our president this year. Monarch Beach Rotary turned 26 years young this last month. And over the last 26 years, we've raised over $1 million in support of local and international charities and supporting like the Boys and Girls Club and Ocean Institute, Shea Riding Center, and many other worthy causes here locally. And on March 31st, we have our 22nd annual charity golf tournament. And I'm humbly inviting you to either attend as a golfer or sponsor one of our 16 Marines and Wounded Warriors that'll be golfing with us this year. Our primary lead sponsor is Cox Business, so I want to give a shout out to them. They are a cash sponsor, which is fantastic. We're very pleased with that. And we are returning our golf tournament to the lovely Monarch Beach golf links here in Dana Point, and encourage anyone who wants to attend to visit our website at monarchbeachrotary.com or to contact me somehow. And if anybody would like any flyers or information, please let me know, and then I'll leave behind a few of our newsletters as well for the council. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the consideration, Mayor. Thank you.
Sorry
very
for
much.
the oversight.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to public hearings. We'll start with item number 17, our Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, or SCIP. If we could have a staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bartlett. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Ursula so she can make a presentation to the council about this important project.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, or SCIP, was created to enable small projects to be able to finance development impact fees as well as public improvements that the private sector installs as part of their project with tax-exempt financing. And so typically, large-scale projects are able to do this through an assessment district, but the cost of issuance is pretty expensive, and if your project isn't large enough, it doesn't make economic sense to do that. So this program was put together to allow many small projects to apply, and the California Community, hang on, sorry, I know the acronym, let me make sure I'm saying it correctly. The California Statewide Communities Development Authority was formed. It's a JPA, which is able to collect applications for many projects and then issue the debt, so that small-scale projects that otherwise would not be able to finance their impact fees or public improvements are able to do so. So projects like the town center, for example, are not large enough to form an assessment district, so they're a perfect example, or other similarly sized projects all throughout Dana Point would be good candidates for this program. The program enables developers to finance the impact fees and public capital improvements through tax-exempt rates, as mentioned, and there are certain benefits to the property owners, which are outlined in the staff report that I will quickly review. And those are that the property owners, they get to choose as to whether they want to participate, so it's not mandatory. And if they do participate, they will have assessments imposed on their property through their property tax bill. Instead of paying cash for the public capital improvements and or the development impact fees, the property owner receives low-cost, long-term tax-exempt financing of those fees, freeing up their capital for other purposes. The property owner can choose to pay off the special assessments at any time. Owners of smaller projects, both residential and commercial, can have access to tax-exempt financing of infrastructure. Before the inception of SCIP, only projects large enough to justify the formation of an assessment or community facilities district had access to tax-exempt financing. And there's also a number of benefits to the city as well. We don't have the administrative burdens that you would typically have with an assessment district. We also are not obligated in any way associated with this debt. So it's a good economic development tool to have that doesn't cost us anything, that can help promote development for projects in Dana Point. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There are 2 resolutions before you. The first one is associated with becoming a member of CSCDA, and then the second reso allows the city to participate in the SCIP program. And staff is recommending that you consider and approve those resolutions this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Schoeffel.
Thank you, Ursula, for bringing this to our attention. I was particularly intrigued by your comment that this could have some application throughout our city, and I was hoping you could give me, say, just an example, not a specific example, but a hypothetical example of where something like that might be useful.
Certainly. Well, currently, the city has 2 development impact fees on the books, and as you are aware, the next item before you is another development impact fee. Those fees get assessed on projects where there's a nexus with some community infrastructure that is being installed by the city as part of the development, and so this program could finance those impact fees. So that's an example that could occur here in town either today or if the item that's before you next on the agenda is approved.
And does this program, when you say you can choose to be in it or choose not to be in it, the whole program is pooled at a statewide level so that the risk can be shared throughout the state, and it gives a property owner who'd like to see something done with their property, but who can't necessarily afford the upfront cash or something to do the off-sites and everything, to get a very favorable financing mechanism that they couldn't qualify for an assessment district. They couldn't qualify for any of the more traditional financing mechanisms. What's the success of this program been throughout the state? Have there been any criticisms of it, or have you had any experience in the other jurisdictions that you've worked in?
Right. I am not aware of any criticisms. I did form it in the city of Vallejo during the recession period, so we didn't have any applicants come in to take advantage of it. But in discussions with large-scale developers, but we're looking at smaller projects in Vallejo. I was applauded for bringing the program forward. In the city of Tracy, it was put into place, and there was an applicant that did move forward with a project there. And it's generally been discussed favorably by the development community. There's no risk to the city, and it helped enable some projects to move forward. There's a lot of different, complicated moving parts, various financing mechanisms that developers are looking at, and it was just a tool to help essentially with their cash flow so that they didn't have to put up all that cash up front paying for those items.
And they might be able to defer that payment to, say, when they close the property to the builder or something like that. That could get paid out of escrow.
Right. There's a couple different options under the application process. But they do have to submit an application, and it does get vetted by the entity that will be issuing the bonds to ensure that there's enough leverage there.
And who administers the program again?
It is the California Community Statewide Communities Development Authority, which is essentially a joint powers authority between the California County Association and, I believe, the League of California Cities.
Okay.
And it was established as an economic development tool.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing. City Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Not this evening, thank you.
Okay, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for discussion and a vote.
Move the item.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
I really voted. Me?
I know we're having technical difficulties.
Mine?
There we go. Okay, and that item passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item number 18.
Item number 18, Mayor Bartlett, is an appeal of a planning commission decision to approve a coastal development permit for the conditional vacation of Scenic Drive and related lot line adjustments with quitclaim deeds resulting from the street vacation. As council is aware, we've been working with the property owners for a number of years here, and I think we're about ready to land the plane. What I'd like to do is, for the benefit of the public and the viewing audience, as well as the council, John, if you could provide an overview of what's before the council.
Yes, thank you, Doug, Mayor, council members. I'll try to be as brief as possible. This has been a long time coming, as Doug has mentioned. In 2002, the city approved the Headlands Development and Conservation Plan. What you have before you is a conceptual plan showing the Conservation Park and Scenic Drive, which I am circling here in relationship to that. And this is all about the city's abandonment of this street, which has always been anticipated by language in the Headlands Development and Conservation Plan. It's always been intended that the city would vacate the street. The details in that have been the devil, though. As you can see in the original city-approved plan, it shows a portion of Scenic Drive still satisfying the existing single-family residence, whereas the northern half of it would have gone to the Conservation Park. Here you'll see the termination of Scenic Drive at the cul-de-sac with an entry to the Nature Interpretive Center parking lot, and the Nature Interpretive Center was to be here. After the city's approval, it was forwarded to the Coastal Commission, and they made some changes, as usual. Some of the changes were, as you can see, the trail is virtually the same, although they eliminated the connection at this where the old Marguerite Street used to be. And there were some changes to the configuration here, and in the next slide it'll show some comparisons, but the trail was virtually the same. Again, this connection was removed, and here's the official certified plan from the Coastal Commission. I will zoom in on the relevant portion here of Scenic Drive. This was the original city approval showing Scenic Drive and the location of the Nature Interpretive Center. Finally, what was certified and approved was the Nature Interpretive Center was moved to this location, and it was actually taking up a portion of the existing right-of-way for Scenic Drive. The trail to the park with a gate right here, then went through the northern portion of the vacated Scenic Drive. This is the final plan that was approved, and in the next slide, you'll see showing what was actually built is virtually identical to the plan here. Here's the cul-de-sac at the termination of Scenic Drive. This is the portion of Scenic Drive to be abandoned. Here is the interpretive center. There's a slight difference here in that the trail, rather than running along the currently paved area, in order to preserve landscaping for the adjoining 4 properties, as was stipulated in the HDCP, the trail was moved to the northernmost edge of the right-of-way, right here. I have one other exhibit here which just shows an overlay of, this is the approved plan, and then I'll fade in what was actually built. It's virtually the same. That's a brief history. In 2007, some of you may recall that the council previously approved the vacation. The Planning Commission approved a version of the vacation, and then the council went forward and approved it. Let me back up. In 2007, the council approved the notice of intent to vacate the street. Then, in 2009, the Planning Commission and the City Council approved a version of the vacation. That was subsequently appealed by the Coastal Commission. There were aspects of it that they did not like. At the request of staff and the applicants, or the property owners, we asked the Planning Commission staff to hold on that appeal until we could have meetings with the Coastal Commission staff to understand what their concerns were with the vacation. After a number of meetings and a lot of time meeting with them, the applicants and staff came up with a slightly different version of the vacation. It went back to the Planning Commission just last year, and with the primary difference, other than some minor adjustments to lot line and things like that, the primary difference for the Coastal Commission's concern was to add a grant, a requirement there to be an easement for public access down the paved portion of the vacated street. The applicants do not object to that, and that's been included in this revised version that was approved by the Planning Commission. The applicants then appealed the decision of the Planning Commission. Mainly the appeal right now, and city staff does not object to this, is to revise a couple of the conditions of the vacation, the CDP, and that is relative to the time frame in which they are required to provide documents to the city, including CC&Rs and lot line adjustment documents, easement documents, once the city's approved all of this and the Coastal Commission's approved it. And that changes just from 25 days to 120 days. Staff does not object to that, and the recommendation is to grant the appeal and approve the vacation with those minor changes. I haven't received any correspondence other than from the property owner's attorney. That letter was provided to you in your packet. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, council members? No? All right, I will open up the public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak? Daniel Plowman?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of the Day Plowman LLC that resides at 34545 Scenic Drive, just to say that they are in favor of the agenda going forward on agenda number 18. That's what I'm here to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I will now close the public hearing and bring it back to the City Council for discussion and a vote.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Weinberg.
You know, I will probably echo what Scott's going to say partially, and that is I think I've spent half my life in city government trying to vacate Scenic Drive, and I hope before I'm termed out I can see it happen. With that, I will move the item.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
If anybody's wondering what's...
And that item passes 5-0. We just have a little bit of delay in our technology
I
here.
have this new toy because my old toy is broke.
Oh. So it's
And it
your
has a
fault.
slight delay in it.
We now move on to item number 19. Could we have a staff report, please?
Of course, Mayor Bartlett. Number 19 is a recommendation that staff is making to the council directs staff to eliminate 2 fees and to give direction to create a development impact fee for the town center. This has been a process that staff has been working on collaboratively with BIA for, gosh, almost a year, I think it's been. This is another one of those working groups where then Mayor Weinberg worked with Councilmember Schoeffel, IRC. The RC has taken a look at this, if I remember correctly, and it's really been a collaborative process. What I'd like to do is have Brad give an overview on the actual process, where the numbers came from, and then Ursula, Mike, and I will be happy to respond to any questions you might have. Go ahead, Brad.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you very much. You may recall that in May, you approved a budget for the capital improvement plan to begin the Pacific Coast Highway section of the PCH Del Prado Street Improvement Project Phase 1. This first phase public street and right-of-way improvement project provides a major portion of the public facilities supporting the town center plan from the on the public street improvement side. The general fund expenditures for this project, if you include both the design, the environmental documentation, and the South Gateway, as well as the estimated costs for Phase 1, PCH, and for Phase 2, Del Prado, would be about $20.7 million. So that's the major investment. We're considering a development impact fee because a portion of these improvements benefit the adjacent property owners in addition to the public. In light of the council's direction to staff to consider a town center plan Lantern District development impact fee, staff first conducted a review of existing city development impact fees. And as a result, we're recommending to you tonight to give us direction to come back and sunset these 2 fees, one being the general government development impact fee and the second, the transportation facilities development impact fee. Not too often we come to you saying, government, we're going to reduce those fees. So that's good. So if you choose to support that recommendation tonight, we will come back to you with the necessary paperwork to sunset those 2 fees. And that's in conjunction with our recommendation tonight. This development impact fee is not a tax, but it's a fee requiring a nexus between the cost of the service and the benefit of the improvements that you're proposing to build out there. So we had Somas Engineering conduct a town center development impact fee feasibility study, which is included in your package, dated February this year. And they've done an engineering study looking at all of the improvements and the costs that would be applied to new building permits within the Lantern District based on the applicable portion of the estimated costs of the project. This fee would only apply to owners building substantial projects, adding density, which result in increasing use of the project's public facilities that would be provided. This fee proposal is bifurcated into 2 zones. One zone which applies to properties abutting or fronting Pacific Coast Highway, and the other abutting Del Prado. So if you're on Del Prado, 1 fee. If you're on PCH, different fee. Staff was concerned the recommended fee be reasonably appropriate to the extent of the private improvement enhancements so as not to overburden developers and owners with costs that would inhibit development and future property improvements, and that it be equitably applied. It's late. I got the first one right. Anyway, you know what I mean. So in addition to working with Somas Engineering, we also worked with RSG, and they're a development consulting firm, and we said, okay, here's the fee that we're proposing. Is this a reasonable fee? They came back and said, yeah, this is a reasonable fee. It's commensurate with what other places charge, and it should not inhibit development in town. It is important to remember that absent the city's improvements that you're working on, developers are typically conditioned to provide similar public improvements in the public right-of-way, abutting their properties as a condition of development, not unlike, for example, Joe Scala had to do up at the old Hollywood Videos, now Tavern on the coast. Okay, so the Somas Development Impact Fee Feasibility Report proposes the city charge $1,027 per linear foot for the frontage on PCH and $1,669 per linear foot on Del Prado. And at the time we initially proposed the fee, the Building Industry Association Orange County chapter requested information, and that led to meetings with them. And after several meetings and going over the proposed development impact fee, the BIA recommended, and city staff supports, a reduction for some of the list of the public facilities that you're building. And those are categories 7, 8, and 9 in the report. Those are for entry monuments, banner poles, historic markers, specialty street signs, tree replacements, bicycle racks, trash cans, street furniture, finding way signage, etc. The end result of that is that reduces our proposed fee to you tonight by 20% on PCH and 33% on Del Prado. So that 1,027 is reduced to $821 a foot, and the 1,669 is reduced by a third to $1,113 per linear foot. We also have had subsequent discussions after those initial meetings with BIA, and they had conducted some additional outreach with members and asked for several other considerations. One is that they said that the height is an issue. So they're going to talk to you a little bit, and I won't belabor it, about height. They'd like eventually to look at height in the town center, Lantern District area. They've acknowledged the efforts that Ursula and the community development planning staff has done on the parking management plan with Nelson Nygaard. That was the subject of your joint meeting with the Planning Commission in January. They've asked us to consider alternative creative financing policies. And they also indicated at our last meeting that one of the problems the development community has to overcome in the Lantern District is a large number of small parcels. And so, and that fragmented ownership makes it hard to put a good project together when you're building multi-story. It's kind of a economies of scale issue in part. And so they asked that we consider, which is also in the staff report, accommodating a 20% fee reduction, which would apply until December 31st of 2015 to our recommended fee. A 15% fee reduction would apply until December 31st of 2016, 10% 2017, 5% 2018. And we've included that in the staff report. The BIA has also submitted a letter late this afternoon that has been distributed to you, acknowledging these efforts, but also asking for some further consideration. At this point, staff is recommending to council that you accept the reduced fee I mentioned, consider whether you assemble properties or not. And the estimate of the cost of this in terms of where it would return money to the city for those investments is about $2.5 to $3 million at the fee that we're recommending to you, which is the 821 and the 1027. So that's a general overview of the report, and can I answer any other questions?
Just a couple comments. So this BIA, I think we're all in agreement that this is a reasonable, expected, and customary development fee. And also, I think it's important to point out that the $2.5 to $3 million would be at build-out, and we your crystal ball isn't any clearer than my crystal ball. We just don't know when that build-out's going to be. So we can't guarantee when the city will see any of that money. But having said that, that is the upper limit of at the end of build-out, correct?
Yes, and Mike has some other more detailed figures on the fiscal if you have any information there. But
So-
yeah, you're fronting the money now in a large capacity, and the estimate that I came up with was figuring 10 years, a third of the properties redeveloped.
But we don't believe that's going to be the case. It's going to be much longer. So having said that, what we'd like to do now is just ask for any questions you might have before you receive public comment.
Okay. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Schoeffel.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Brad, let me see if I got this right. The city's sunk costs, if assuming we go through the Del Prado improvements, will be roughly $20 million.
Almost 21,
Almost
yes.
$20 million, starting with the specific plan design, acquisition of the entitlement, or the right-of-way entitlement.
It actually doesn't include the specific plan design in that figure.
That doesn't include? And what was the specific plan, roughly?
Well,
Just
that dealt, as you recall, that actually dealt with the code changes, and the street improvements was not included in the regulars town center specific plan.
I guess, Brad, to answer to his question, what was, do you or John recall what the budget figure that we paid to Roma for the town center specific plan? 400,000, $500,000?
Yeah, it was in that range, yes.
And that was just the out-of-pocket cost to Roma. That doesn't include the staff time in the meetings and what have you.
That's correct.
And Brad, does that number include the acquisition costs that we paid for
Easements?
easements and
Yes.
right-of-ways?
Yes, it does.
So 20 million plus, whatever that is.
The actual report that Somas did is based on $20.7 million.
Okay, so, and according to Mr. Shotkevis, the $2.5 to $3 million that we anticipate being returned through build-out by payment of this development fee, which is based on the nexus requirement that it be, reasonably related to the development impact of the projects. That could be 5 years from now, that could be 20 years from now.
That's correct.
And so the city would also be fronting the time value of money for that whole process as well. I'm just
Yes.
trying to get some idea of what the city's share of this whole thing and the private developer share of this whole thing is.
Yes.
So it's not, overall, it's not a fairly large number. There's a risk of build-out, as I think we'll hear about as the months go by, and it may not come in for a long, long time.
That's possible.
Is that a fair? So that's what we're looking at here tonight, is to establish a development impact fee, which enables us to charge that, so that in the hope that after we front the $20 million someday, we'll be able to defray that small portion of it.
That's correct.
If and when the project is successful.
Yes, sir.
And the
Don't be so pessimistic.
No, actually, there's an optimistic note in here. I'm just trying to figure out, because it's a spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
It's a financial exercise. We review budgets, we make financial plans, we allocate funds, according to value, needs, all that sort of stuff throughout town. And I think we're obligated to go through the same financial exercise with every project we go through. $20 million is a lot of money. Will we have a chance to speak with the representatives from the BIA if they comment this evening?
Yes, well, we'll see if they have a speaker slip. Yes, they do have the speaker slip.
Okay.
Mike Balsamo is here.
Oh, okay, great. Then I'll reserve some questions for our friends in the BIA.
Okay.
That's all I have for now.
Very good. Council members, any additional questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, we'll now open the public hearing, and I believe we have at least one request to speak. Thank you. Okay. Yes, we have Mike Balsamo. If you could state your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Mayor Bartlett and council members. My name is Mike Balsamo. I'm with the Building Industry Association, Orange County Chapter. We are officed in Irvine, and I actually live in Aliso Viejo, so not far from you folks here. First off tonight, just wanted to say we're thrilled to see the progress that's already occurring with the initiation of construction in the Lantern District. That's fantastic, and happy for the city on that. BIA represents over 1,000 member companies and over 100,000 employees here in the county involved in home building. And we don't take fees lightly. I think you probably all know our reputation in that regard. Now, I understand the city had its reasons for moving forward with the project. Those have been well documented. Our primary caution to you, and we've indicated this in the letter, is that new development impact fees do not serve as an incentive for renewal and investment in an area. And we're suggesting some modifications, or at least some things for you to consider this evening as you consider this item. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, I wanted to acknowledge item 17, which I think is a very positive step, two items back on your agenda tonight with the skip financing. Great thing to do. Just to put a little bit more of a project-specific number to what we're talking about, for Del Prado, if you had a 75-foot lot, which I understand to be somewhat the norm down there, you're looking at an $83,475 fee for that property owner or developer. If it were 300, if you were fortunate enough to assemble a few parcels and you had a 300-foot linear frontage, you're looking at a $333,000 fee. Substantial numbers that do impact people's thought process a bit when they're deciding whether or not to move forward. We do understand, again, the city's goals. We understand the sort of unfunded component. We know the city has a number of different financial resources within its coffers. We want to see this vision come to fruition, and so some of the things we've indicated in our letter is the modification of the building height. We're hoping that the city will commit to further studying that issue, look at where appropriate within the range of the Lantern District, you might be able to consider higher building height levels. We understand that it was a very important and sensitive issue to the community when it went through the specific plan process. So again, we don't expect that to be easy. Understand that would require a review, but if you really want to get sort of development with a certain amount of gravity to it that will change that area, it's an important consideration. We also are supportive of modifying the outdated parking standards. I know the city staff are already moving ahead in looking at that issue and working with your community, allowing for off-site parking, allowing for tandem parking, shared parking, having reasonable guest parking standards. These are all things that have been done in similar sort of town center areas throughout the state and around the country. And I would say if you really want a mixed-use environment, you've really got to go all in on that in terms of thinking about what the possibilities are and alternative modes and pedestrian orientation, that kind of thing. Fair share principles is something we talk about whenever we discuss fees in any public agency. And we do appreciate that items 7, 8, and 9, as mentioned by Brad. The staff has acquiesced on those issues. We saw them as sort of non-essential and more on the cosmetic side. You would struggle to find a true nexus on those items. And then the last thing that we indicated in our letter was requesting phased implementation. I think largely to the recession, but for any number of other challenges in that area, we haven't seen an influx of development to this point. And to add the fee on top, it only further complicates parcel assembly and projects moving forward. So what we were hoping was for the phased implementation of the fee as outlined by the staff. We would like to see that just a straight phased implementation, leaving the parcel assembly requirement out of it to give the greatest incentive for if there's an owner that is considering a project, if there's a builder considering a project, it gives one more positive opportunity for them to move forward quickly, in that they might get a break on what the actual fee is. Lastly, I want to thank the city manager for including us in the process. I want to thank Ursula and Brad also for their communication. They have been very open with us, and we sincerely appreciate that fairness and that dialogue. and we're here to serve as a resource to the city any way we can. Thank you.
Mayor Bartlett, if I could just please 1 second. I want to thank Mike for making himself personally available on a number of occasions, as well as his members of his executive committee. Because of that input, I think we've truly come up with a fee structure that's fair, reasonable, and customary, and we really, really appreciate your input in the process.
Council members, any questions of Mr. Balsamo? Yes. Council member Schofield?
First of all, Mr. Balsamo, thank you so much. Thank your organization for getting involved in this. One of my questions for a long time has been, if we build it, will they come? And I thought one of the best organizations to ask about will they come was your organization, because of the scope, the quality of your members, everything else. And you and your folks have truly done yeoman service in speaking candidly with the city and being helpful in letting us know what it's going to take to generate the type of interest it will take to get the substantial investment into that area of the city. So first of all, thank you your organization. And I'll reserve my discussion of this with when we get to the discussion part of our item here. But suffice to say, fair share principles I'm in accord with, phased implementation on your approach, early adopters, in my view, I come from that type of background. If they take that risk early, there should be an incentive associated with it, and I would certainly support that. My biggest concern here is I don't know what you mean, because I have a feeling that, first of all, I understand you can't support a development fee. I never knew a developer who would ever say that a development fee helps them make a decision to develop a project, any more than they would say pricier land helps me make a decision to support a project, or being in a floodplain helps me make that decision. It's just one of those things that is a necessary part of the cost sharing of this thing, in my view anyway, and in my experience. But I understand that you're still willing to support that based on the other conditions that you've got in here. The one I don't quite understand is the modification of building height. You want a commitment to study the building height. What exactly does that mean to you? Because you're talking about building heights ranging up to 65 feet should be considered at certain locations that do not impact off-site properties, and I believe we have a maximum zoning height of 40 feet throughout the Lantern District. So what would it take to satisfy the BIA that the city was in good faith exploring an option like that wouldn't dissuade the interest of developers for coming in?
Well,
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it is an interesting way that it's worded in the letter.
Right, and the reason it's worded that way is because we wouldn't make the presumption of being able to tell the city how and where that's the right thing to do. I think you know your city better than anybody. Your planning staff knows the city better than anybody. Your residents know it better than anyone. I would just say that the building height is necessary to get projects of a size that will generate, the potential for a developer to move forward. And I would also say that if you get more bodies, more living area in, more residential component in the town center, it's going to activate the retail that you've got in the area, and hopefully attract more retail than perhaps what you have today, or improve the retail that you have today. So we think it's important. Understanding it's 40 feet now, we're not saying it would need to go to 65 everywhere, but we're thinking that there are probably areas with a lower topography that where if you went up to 65 feet and you used subterranean parking, where you wouldn't be impacting anybody's view, and you could potentially see a project, that's a little more urban feeling that still fits the city of Dana Point.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you again for your time.
Sure.
Council members, any additional questions for Mr. Balsamo? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back for a discussion and a vote. I have a couple of questions. Brad, can you tell us, with regard to the proposed reduced fee structure, How does that fit with some of the other coastal cities? Are we in line with other coastal cities, higher, lower? What are your comments there?
That's a little bit difficult to answer. And I say that because we've come in with, we have a very linear town center Lantern District area.
Mm-hmm.
And so we chose to come in with a proposal after talking with Somas Engineering that was kind of on a linear foot by linear foot basis. As opposed to other towns may have development impact fees that are based on the square footage of development.
Okay.
Which would make more sense if we didn't have lots that are kind of uniform and setbacks and depths that are fairly similar. So I don't have anybody else that I can say that has that comparison on a linear foot. But what we did do, and that's the important part that RSG did for us. When we had RSG when they came in, they used dollars, and not just with the impact fee, but all the other factors that get involved here in Dana Point with building height, et cetera, and said, okay, is this fee going to cause that developer not to come in? And the answer was the fee is not of a nature that's going to cause that problem, given all the circumstances with what planning and development has. Do you want to amplify on that, Ursula, at all, or am I explaining that right? Because
You explained it right, but what was also mentioned in the report is that the factors of the cost of construction. So how nice do you want the architecture to be? How high quality do you want the project to be? So when you're looking at a development pro forma, you're looking at the costs, and there's soft costs, there's financing costs, there's hard costs, and then you're looking at the revenue that can be generated, which is usually on a per unit basis for the residential, and then looking at the commercial revenues that could come in. And it needs to, developers typically don't like to lose money. They need a certain return. And so all those factors get weighed in. And RSG, did mention that it could be managed, but there might be some, developers might want to cut some costs in some other areas, such as quality of architecture, et cetera. So it all does need to be weighed.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, but then they got into things like the parking management fee can help that situation. Building height could be looked at. That's a possibility too. They're very similar to what Mike said. There are other factors too that can be considered in it, but the fee itself is not out of line with what other folks are charging.
Okay, and then just hypothetically, if the building height were to change from something at 40 feet to something higher, would we have to make an amendment and put that before the California Coastal Commission again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we know means significant delays. Okay. And let's see, with our in lieu fee parking program that we recently discussed on the last agenda, does that pretty much take care of the item number 2 on the BIA letter?
I think it's actually the longer term efforts that we are looking at as part of that discussion that we had, which was changing the development standards for town center for commercial parking. That will go a long way to assisting developers, and then looking at parking management in general. I think the parking in lieu fee was kind of an interim while we're waiting to get Coastal Commission approval, because we need that as well to change the development standards for parking in town center.
Okay, great. Okay. Council members, any other questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I've got a question, since we're making swags on, when we're going to get the revenue back from the impact fee. Can you make a swag that's a scientific guess? You can guess in the rest of it, on decreasing the fees that we charge the developers is going to cost the city?
I think, let me ask Mike Killaroo to address that.
Let me find
Pardon me.
the data I put together a little bit earlier today. Give me a second here. Yeah, right now, the general government impact fee, we have 2 fees, general government impact and transportation impact. The general government impact fee more recently has been generating about $6,000 per year, and
but historically, if I go back to the inception of the fee back in 92-3, it was, the average per year has been about $30,000 per year. But like I said, more recently, the last 5-6 years or so, it's been a lot lower. And on transportation impact fee, more recently, it's been about $17,000 per year. But historically, going back to 92-3, the annual average is about $70,000.
Well, now, if I remember what you were saying is, we're going to charge the developers, those that develop before 2015, give them a 20% haircut on the fee, and then the next couple of years, a 15% haircut. What is that haircut going to cost the city in revenue? Since we're guessing.
That's you know, that's hard to estimate, as Councilmember Schoeffel.
Yeah, I don't think we can guess.
I'm not sure we can.
Yeah.
We had recommended in this that we only do it for parcel consolidation as opposed to everybody who happens to meet the time frame on it.
But, you know, Brad, perhaps by way of example, Mike and I were talking about a specific example of a project that might come to fruition, hopefully sometime soon. And I think by looking at that, we can then figure out, if they take advantage of it, what the savings is. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Well, Mike had mentioned earlier the example of a 75-foot lineal frontage and another one at 300 feet. I just ran some numbers on a parcel down there that might move forward a little bit quicker, is a little bit farther along in the entitlement process, and it's got 140 lineal frontage feet on Del Prado, so it's the $1,113 per lineal foot assessment. This development, just running through the numbers here, would assume a first floor, 7,400 square foot of retail, with about half of it being a restaurant, another 1,200 square feet being a takeout area for a restaurant, and 2,800 square foot of retail. And then above on the second, third floor would be about 18 residential units. Using our current impact fees, the government impact fee would generate about $14,000 in revenue for that project, and the transportation impact fee would be $17,000. So those are the fees that we're asking direction from the council whether or not to bring it back and eliminate those fees. Moving forward with the proposed fee that's on tonight's agenda, the 140 lineal foot would generate at $1,113 per lineal foot, would generate $155,000 in revenue.
Right.
But I kind of want to put this a little bit into perspective, because yes, $155,000 sounds like a lot of money, but if those 18 residential units, for instance, so if you take 2/3 of that $155,000 and assess it to the second and third floor, then you get $110,000 roughly. On $600,000 per unit for 18 units, you're talking about, just off the top of my head, about $6,000 per unit on a $600,000 market value. So, I mean, yeah, the numbers, when you just throw them out there, yeah, they sound like a lot, but when you divide them into what's the product that's going to be for sale, kind of puts it in a little bit different perspective.
And
I'm not asking the question correctly.
I think I understand your question. So the fee, so on 140 linear feet, the new town center proposed fee would be $155,000. A 20% discount on that would be about $30,000.
That's the only fee we're going to discount, not the building fees or?
Correct. The building fees are administrative. They're very low, and they haven't been updated in many years.
So that's the only fee that we're going to discount. So in that case, he'd get a $30,000 haircut, roughly.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. We have too many fees floating around this place.
Well, we're recommending that you delete 2 for 1, so it's a good deal.
I understand, but there's building fees and impact fees and.
Yeah. So I think Mike made a good point, though. In addition to the fee that we evaluated, these 2 fees is new reductions to that. So on that project, you're already taking $30,000 off with the reduction of these other 2 fees.
Right.
When would they recognize, when would we recognize they get a haircut of 20% or 15% when they put the shovel in the ground or get entitlement?
It's at the time of the building permit is what's in the ordinance.
Okay, so it's not, help
All
me
their-
out.
All their entitlements are done.
Okay, so it's not just entitlement, is they've got to do the grading permits and all the other permits?
It's typical
Fine.
in most cities, and currently with the 2 impact fees that we have, it's that's when we charge those impact fees. They're mitigating impacts associated with those improvements, and when they pull the building permit, that's when there's enough certainty that they're actually going to move forward with those improvements.
And how long are building permits good for? Roughly?
180 days.
Okay, so what I don't want people
It
to do...
was 180 days, was
Okay.
what Mark said.
What I don't want people to do is scam the system, is pull the permits and then sit on it, for as long as they can. If it's 180 days, it's not sitting a long time, but, if there's a will, there's a way.
I think we have track history. We work in a very fair and reasonable way with the permitting, so we don't have a lot of green fences as a result of the city's action. But just to clarify, the developer's not taking a haircut. The city's taking a haircut because what we're doing is we're reducing the 2 fees. So on that particular project, just so we're clear, is we're foregoing about $31,000 of fees that we're asking you to eliminate. And then, if I recall, they're also going to get a windfall of a $32,000 fee reduction. So if they take advantage of that in the time, they're going to have over, a $60,000 savings.
I just want to make sure that, that everybody plays fair and we don't set up rules that have unintended consequences.
Understand, and I think one of the things, the philosophy, and especially with Ursula coming on board, is, Ursula hasn't even been here a year, and we're already addressing parking issues. She's working with people on an interim basis until we can get an approved parking plan done. The SKIP program is something she's brought in, and when you look at the amount of activity at the counter, as Mark can attest, I mean, there's a willingness and a desire to make things happen for the development community.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Breaux.
Thanks, Mayor Bartlett. Brad, a pretty basic question. Seems to me on the surface it's one project, but yet we have one fee for Pacific Coast Highway and one fee for Del Prado, and the Pacific Coast Highway project costs more than the Del Prado, but the fees are less on PCH. How were these numbers configured?
Well, that's not really the case, and I say that because the project that you awarded for PCH was included sections of Del Prado in it for Phase 1. So it's not just PCH, it includes a significant part of Del Prado in it also. So that, if you're looking at those two, this Phase 2 Del Prado is only 3 blocks of Del Prado, not 4 on it.
Why not have just one fee for the...
Well, the part of the nexus requirement is that you look at, and we looked at each street and what the what was included with each street, but not all of the costs are attributed to each developer on each street. So there are lesser costs distributed on PCH to the PCH businesses, and in one sense, when you think about it, there's lesser improvements on PCH that are being done in our project than what will be done on Del Prado in terms of the work that's being done on the front of the property, right out, on the sidewalks and things, abutting the property specifically.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any additional questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Olvera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, let me go back to Mr. Kilbrew and his example. What would the fees today be for that same project?
$31,000. There are a lot of assumptions in there as far as average daily trips, but the one we're looking at.
There's a lot of assumptions in this whole process. Ballpark's good enough for me. We received as part of tonight's attendance, we received a revised agenda saying that on this item, there is only one ordinance, not two ordinances for introduction. The recommended action was for item C was to adopt a resolution, and for D was also to adopt a resolution. So I assume that we're not considering item C. Okay. Development impact fees are standard. I don't think anybody's having a problem with that. The recommended, in the staff report, the recommended fee would only apply to owners building substantial projects. That's subjective, and so I don't know what that means. And there's other discussion that comes into this. I guess my question to Mr. Fowler, the SOMAS engineering study, when was that? I know it was issued in February, but how long has it been available to the public? Has the public been able to go out and get that study?
I believe we've had it available to the public for 15 days in requirements with the Mitigation Act. When we put the notice out, we put it out well before the notice of the public
So it's just
hearing.
been for this meeting?
I'm sorry?
It has just been available for this meeting?
Well, yes, except that we sent a separate public notice out addressing this, not just for this, for, when we're going out like last Thursday. We sent it out 15 days ahead, which is required in the state code.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly the notice date, but it was.
That's
it
okay.
was done that.
Recently is good enough.
Okay.
Also in the staff report, it relies heavily on the BIA's input, which we had a presentation on from Mr. Balsamo, and reclarification on some of their input. But Mr. Fowler, I believe that you said that right now, building height is not on the table. We're not there yet.
That's correct, because that would require an LCPA.
That's correct.
And we would run a parallel tract on that if the council so directed.
What we maybe it wasn't clear. What I said was when we worked with the BAA over a period of time, we talked, and I actually did a kind of a calculation of where I thought the fees would end up approximately for our discussion purposes and categorized it. And then after our discussions with BIA, we finalized the study on the costs. But then after that, when we re-met with the BIA, the issue of the building height and the request that we consider building height came in, subsequent to the study.
So for the purpose of discussion right now, building height is a question mark?
Yes.
Okay, fine. In the BIA's opinion, the project, in the staff report, BIA's opinion, the project needs to generate a minimum of 100 dwelling units in order to pencil financially. I, as a council person, don't determine whether projects pencil financially, because I have no idea on the ROR on projects, and that's not my job. I don't care to know. 100 dwelling units, how many parcels would have to be put together to meet the 100 dwelling units? But before you answer that, is 100 dwelling units still on the table based upon the revised BIA letter that we now have?
Let me just assist in answering that. It was just paraphrasing some conversations with the BIA. Really, the takeaway is that there needs to be enough units for there to be some economy of scale for these projects to pencil. And from a policy perspective, I agree that you particular projects, whether they pencil or not, is not your concern. But overall, for economic development policy or implementing the vision of the town center plan, knowing whether development is actually feasible or not could factor into your decision-making process.
I understand that part. Then in the staff report, it is impossible to get the number of units necessary with the current height limit. I just read that for a fact that we still have some uncertainty that we're discussing.
Again, those aren't our words from staff saying that.
I understand that, but it's in the staff report that
we're relaying information that was provided from the BIA.
Yes. Should the council wish to consider and accommodate this request, I believe that's for the proposal. The proposal discussed with BIA applies only to private projects. Well, we now have a different proposal, so now we're not really going to consider or accommodate the request in the proposal that's in the staff report? Is that yes or no?
The proposal in the staff report is to set the fee at $8.21 and 11.13.
Right.
That's the dollar amounts. And right now, that's the way it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Absent that, unless you take further action, that's it.
Okay. And these are reduction in fees, these haircuts that we've been talking about, the way this report is written, that applies to if the parcels are assembled?
That's what we put this in here, so if you would like to consider that, we have this down here with actual dates and some parameters that you could consider if you wanted to say, staff, we like the fee, and we would also like you to add this in. So
Okay.
it's for your consideration, but it's not included within our recommendation.
Brad, just to clarify, what information was provided to BIA so that they could conduct their analysis and come up with their recommendations?
Essentially, the fee amounts.
Yeah, the fee study.
The fee study amounts. Originally, it was kind of a summary table of the items 1 through 9 that gave kind of magnitudes for various types of improvements. And through that process, we said, okay, 1 through 6 is good, 7 through 9, take it off.
But again, through the spirit of collaboration, we relied upon BIA's expertise and what have you to review and vet and provide recommendations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you told me you had taken a look at this 100-unit development that was put out.
We did not take a look at 100-unit development.
I thought you said to me that there was something.
We relayed the conversation, I believe Ursula did, to you from a discussion with BIA, that they indicated that, and it was in support of the idea of trying to be able to assemble properties, that some of the, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that some of the developers that they work with really think that they would be more interested in coming into the town center, and it would be more likely to see them if we had projects where they could assemble parcels that would support 100 units.
Right.
And you need to assemble multiple properties to be able to build 100 units. Because, for example, John Chen's project, we're talking about how many units there? 18 there. So you'd almost, it's more like what you'd see at above Lux. You've got the whole complex there that takes half a block.
I think
like
the
that.
expression was comparing apples to oranges based upon what we can develop here versus what might be compared in other cities.
Oh, okay. Ursula's also mentioning that we talked to you about a study that the BIA presented to us from Huntington Beach.
Okay.
And the Huntington Beach study was looking at a development fee there. But the Huntington Beach study looked at storm drain and circulation elements only, and not all of the elements 1 through 9 that we looked at in our study here for the improvements that the city of Dana Point is considering.
Thank you.
Okay, and in the concluding portion of this report, the city is actively working to find ways to incentivize development. Obviously, we all agree towards that, but right now, aren't we providing a disincentive to development with higher fees?
Well, from my standpoint, we've tried to show you that we're providing a balanced approach that recognizes that, remember, as I mentioned, that if you were going into a normal city, and not unlike what Joe Scala had, we would say, when you do your development, the city's not doing it, you do it. And that's what 90% of the cities do, is you come in as the developer, you do the private property, you're conditioned to do the public property in front. So we're doing that public property to enhance all the town center.
Okay.
And the request here is to return about 15%, $3 million on $21 million, about about 15% back with this development impact fee over time.
And Councilmember Olvera, if I can try to respond to that as well. The city is essentially rolling the dice a bit. We're putting the public improvements in first. There are a number of studies that indicate if you do that, you will get private sector return on investment, but there's no guarantee of that. So we are kind of fronting some of those costs. And further, that the fee proposed only covers 15% of the actual cost of our improvements. Plus, there's this potential idea that you can consider a further reduction of that. So there is, many cities would require 100% cost recovery, or ask for the developers to put those improvements in themselves. So I think we are consistently trying to incentivize development, but at the same time, get a small portion back of this so that we can continue to reinvest.
I agree with that approach. Mr. Fowler's earlier comment this evening was the fee causes developers not to come in. That could be, but we're trying to make developers come in, and they expect to pay a fee, so I don't see that as being a problem. Now, the bottom of the report says, or the requested action, alternative actions as determined by the council. So basically, you're asking for this or anything else as a substitution. I'm looking at a lot of this is based on revised testimony, revised input. We're looking at, I don't know if really we're talking about parking studies which aren't done yet. We're talking about fair share principles. We're talking about phased implementation as an incentive and modification of building heights. What I'd like to see is this report come back with a little bit more clarity on exactly what we want. Do we want one motion, one ordinance, two ordinances, one to repeal, one to sunset, and one to establish? We've had the discussion now. We've had a good public input, and so I hope there's more information that you can get rid of the fog, as one person used to say, so we could. I don't want to pass this to get past the fog to see what it's going to look like later. I want the report to go down the road where we hope to go. And I realize we're rolling the dice on some of this, but I think we can clean this up a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, for me, I think staff has provided a lot of clarity with our Q&A session here, in deleting the two ordinances for fees and then implementing. I thought there were two.
There are two existing.
Two existing that we're deleting, and establishing the lower fees of the 821 on PCH and the 1113 on Del Prado. So when you consider when developers come to a city, for instance, if we didn't have this proposal, we would ask them for their development project to actually front that $20.7 million when they develop. What we're doing is we're paying it up front and just asking the developers when they complete their projects to pay a small portion of that in return, 15% equating to about $3 million. So I think that's a pretty good trade-off when you consider the way we're implementing this. And then I think the phased implementation that the BIA suggested is a great addition to what is recommended here. So I think there is enough clarity for me now finally to feel comfortable and to move forward with our Q&A that we've had. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a question?
Yeah, I want to pick on BIA for a second. In another agency I sit on, BIA is against any fee that starts with the word F and ends with the word E. And to see them concur that this is fair and equitable means that maybe we left too much on the table, but I'm willing to do that if they help us build this out. So with that, I'll make a motion, or do we have to make multiple motions?
I think we have multiple motions, and,
We do one.
well, you can do it all in one if you'd like.
You're only asking for one.
Well, that we approve the recommended item.
Well, okay. Why don't we have Councilmember Schoffel
19, there was
provide
only
some
one
clarity?
ordinance, now
Yeah.
2 ordinances for introduction.
Yep, no, understand.
Okay, let me take a stab at this, Madam Mayor, if I might.
Absolutely.
First of all, I would move that the council direct staff to immediately initiate action and return to council with the appropriate action documents for the disestablishment of the general government development impact fee and the transportation facilities development impact fee. So you guys have a drafting exercise
That's
to
correct,
do
sir.
with that one. That would be the first part of my motion. The second part of my motion would be to, and this is borrowing from the comments in the BIA letter.
Sure.
Would be to redraft the ordinance that you submitted for our consideration this evening to reflect the following points of agreement with the BIA. First of all, number one, we can take no action on modification of building height, and we can take no commitment on that. That's not agendized. That's a matter that for another day. Two, I assume the modification of the outdated parking standards has already been reflected in this development impact fee ordinance that we're looking at tonight. Shouldn't have a thing to do with it, I wouldn't think.
Does not have anything to do with
Okay.
it.
I will go on the record as saying thank you to the BIA for acknowledging that the city, and in particular our community development staff, has done yeoman's work in getting that to the table. I think it's very progressive and very good for that project. Three, BIA wanted confirmation that fee study categories 7, 8, and 9 have been excluded. I am assuming that in the text of the ordinance, those have been written out.
And just a point of clarification, none of the fees are in the ordinance. Okay, the ordinance is written to stand as an ordinance by itself with
Okay.
the city attorney's guidance. So that, and the resolution establishes the initial fee, and that's, you can do that tonight. And if you asked us to redraft the ordinance, we'd come back with the same ordinance next time.
Oh, okay.
So
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so then I would, the second part of my motion would be to, where did I put that?
Did you cover the phased implementation?
Yeah, right, well, I just one second. Okay. Would be to introduce and hold a first reading of the ordinance, Action Document A, Exhibit A, which is appended to the staff report as Action Document A. So would that first reading be our next meeting?
That first reading would be tonight.
Okay, so this would be the first reading of that ordinance. And then the fee would be established pursuant to that ordinance, and we could take into account the agreement with the points that I mentioned in the BIA letter.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's an inartful way of saying it, but that would be a statement of the council's intent as of this evening.
I'm looking at the city attorney, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay. So that would be my War and Peace motion.
All right, and I will second that. Okay? Yes, Councilmember Olvera?
I'd like to recommend you split those in two motions,
Okay, and for what reason?
because there's 2 items to vote on, not one.
Bifurcate them.
Oh, I don't mind splitting it.
Bifurcate, if you'd like.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's what I'm asking for.
I think the goal is to have a choice to take away fees that people may wish to vote one way on, and then a question of to add fees, which people may vote to take another way, even though, as I believe the discussion firmly established tonight, those issues are linked.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
for purposes of a formal vote, I'm happy to split that. So I would move, my first motion would be to direct staff to immediately initiate action, return to council with the appropriate action documents for the disestablishment of the general government development impact fee and the transportation facilities development impact fee.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote. That item passes 5-0.
And I would add that, linked to that first motion, but introduced as a second motion, would be to introduce and hold a first reading of the ordinance which is attached as Action Document A, Exhibit A.
Okay. And I'll
Second. Staff report.
And we have a second. Please cast your votes. Okay. And that item passes 3-2.
Point of clarification, if I may.
Yes.
I would like you to adopt the resolution also, which is C on your staff report. And I would like clarification, if I could get it. You've established the fee amount, but I'm uncertain as to whether you wanted to consider or add the reduction, the 20%, 15%, 10%, 5%, or not, as part of the fee.
Fair enough.
As an incentive, and whether that's tied to only the assembly or not. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I would move that the council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dana Point establishing the Lantern District Development Impact Fee for the Town Center Plan area and the mitigation program and setting the initial amount of the fee for development within that area. And in setting that fee, I would propose that that the discount for the early adopters, according to that schedule that was read earlier this evening, be adopted, and that be for any construction on any parcel, not just assembled parcels.
Right. Right.
Okay.
I'll second.
Question, go ahead. That was for compiled parcels?
No, individual parcels. We changed it.
Okay. Any construction.
Yeah, any construction.
Any construction.
So single project, for instance.
That is also linked, by the way, to my first motion, because I consider this to be an integrated set of motions.
Right.
That's my intent, anyway.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second.
Second.
Cast your votes, please. That passes 4-1. Okay. We have no unfinished business. We'll now move on to new business, item number 20, Transportation Corridor Agency update. I'd like to call up at this time Michael Kramen, who is the acting CEO of the Transportation Corridors Agencies, to provide a brief report.
Good evening, Mayor Bartlett and council members. As you mentioned, I'm Mike Kramen, acting CEO for the Transportation Corridor Agencies. And we're pleased to be here this evening to give you an update. The Transportation Corridor Agencies are two joint power authorities. The agencies were formed through state law to plan, finance, construct, and operate Orange County's 67-mile toll road system. The City of Dana Point is a member of both the San Joaquin Hills, which oversees State Route 73, and the Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor, which oversees toll roads 133, 241, and 261. TCA has an annual budget of $112 million for the San Joaquin Hills Agency and $180 million for the Foothill Eastern Agency. Sources of revenue include tolls collected, fees and penalties, development impact fees, and interest. Expenditures include debt service, toll operations, administration, and capital project planning, environmental, and construction. Since the inception of TCA, the business model has been to contract out as much of the work as possible to stay flexible and be able to adjust staffing with the progress of the projects. TCA has primarily a professional staff that oversees the contractors working on board-approved projects and initiatives. TCA's procurement practices are governed by a number of documents. TCA's enabling legislation, the Joint Powers Act, Joint Powers Agreement and Administrative Code, our toll revenue bond, indentures of trust, and the rules, policies, and procedures adopted by the Board of Directors, which includes our CAPS manual, Contracts, Procurement Policies, and Procedures manual, as well as resolutions of the Board of Directors. As an example of the procurement activity at TCA, for the period beginning in 2013 and for the first 2 months of 2014, there were 480 contracting or authorizations for work at the agency, totaling about $76.5 million. Now, there are 6 different types of authorizations that occur to process that work through the system in accordance with the items I just described. So the first 2 actions are board actions requiring approval of the board, and also number 2 would be board actions that had previously been approved by the board. Now, the volume of those activities is approximately 174 items, with a total amount of $74 million, which totals 97% of all of the procurement activity at the agency. Now, beyond that, we have an item for CEO authority for costs between $10,000 and $25,000, and also CEO delegated to department heads for procurements less than $10,000. We had 154 of those activities during the period, for a total volume of approximately $1 million, or 1.5% of our activity during that period. Now, these authorizations for CEO authority less than $25,000 are very reasonable as compared to other entities. For example, the city manager for the city of Dana Point has authority up to $35,000. OCTA, RCTC, and Sandbag CEOs have authority up to $50,000, and for certain types of procurement have authority up to $100,000, and in some cases $250,000. The next category is what we call routine business expenses. We had 147 of those actions, totaling $1.2 million. Now, what we mean by our routine business expenses, these would be one-year contracts for routine goods and services up to $100,000 in value. And examples of these actions include trash collection, elevator service, fire prevention services, software licenses, pest control, and those type of contracts. And our last category is a resolution that allows procurement with CEO and concurrent chair approval. Now, item 6 was instituted by resolution of the Foothill and Eastern Board of Directors and approved by a 2/3 vote as a part of the budget resolution. It states, with approval of the chair, the chief executive officer is authorized to execute contracts with appropriate consultants regarding legislative support and legislative strategy, provided that such contracts do not exceed the applicable budget limitations for such activities. I would state that for all of our procurements, 100% of all our expenditures are in our annual budget that is approved by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Directors or a subsequent budget amendment that would increase that also by a 2/3 vote. This budget resolution was first approved in 2007 and was also approved in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013, each time by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Directors. At the February 13th, 2014 Board of Directors meeting, Chairwoman Bartlett, along with the Foothill and Eastern Board, rescinded this provision of the budget resolution. Since 2007, there have been 5 different chairs and 3 CEOs who have followed this contracting procedure. At the time that the language was first introduced in 2007, TCA was facing a new set of challenges in the pursuit of a Coastal Commission approval and subsequently an appeal to the U.S. Department of Commerce. This created an urgent need to develop new strategy and support at both the state and federal levels for our program. In subsequent years, TCA has faced the introduction of both state and federal legislation designed to stop the completion of the 241 toll road, and it has been necessary to bring on consultants under this resolution to assist in developing our strategy and supporting the agency to meet these challenges. More recently, TCA came under fire in Sacramento over the agency's finances. While TCA has met all of its financial obligations over the years, and the Foothill Eastern Agency has maintained an investment-grade rating, it was necessary to bring in consultants to help develop our strategy and support our efforts to get accurate information into the discussions in Sacramento. As we all know, with the recent refinancing of the Foothill and Eastern Agency's debt, the agency's financial position is very strong. Hiring experts to provide extensive testimony and advocacy strategies is critical to the long-term success of completing the toll road system. Since January of 2013, 5 consultant contracts have been authorized or amended under the resolution provision. The value of those contracts represents 0.2% of TCA's procurements during that period. While it is fairly standard to have a provision like this, Chairwoman Bartlett and the Foothill Eastern Agency Board of Directors voted to rescind the provision at their February meeting, and Chairwoman Bartlett called for the formation of an ad hoc committee to review all of the agency's contract procurement policies and procedures. Led by Chairwoman Bartlett and Chairman Hill, the Joint Procurement Ad Hoc Committee had its first meeting 2 weeks ago, and staff is tasked with returning to the committee with additional information. The Joint Procurement Ad Hoc Committee will be developing recommendations for the Board of Directors to discuss and consider at a future meeting. I would like to conclude with an important point. TCA has solid contract procedures, policies, and controls, and the vast majority of contracts, 97%, go to the Board of Directors directly for approval. As acting CEO, I am committed to transparency and accountability, principles of utmost importance to Chairwoman Bartlett and the Board of Directors. I'm also happy to report tonight, as part of my update, that the performance of the toll road system is strong. Ridership this fiscal year is up 3.5%, and revenues are up by 11.6%. We successfully completed a $2.3 billion refinancing of the Foothill and Eastern system, and we recently introduced new express accounts and one-time toll features to provide more payment options to customers as we prepare for the elimination of cash toll collection in May of 2014. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this information. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, directors, any questions? Actually, council members, any questions? Okay. City Clerk, did we have? Oh,
Quite a few.
Councilmember Breaux?
It simply amazes me that we have 2 council members that are chairs of boards, and I ask for simple updates, and Councilmember Weinberg brings the chief down, who's a very busy man, and Mayor Bartlett brings the acting CEO down. If anyone asks me to comment on any committees I serve on, I'll be doing it myself. So that's the first thing. How this all started is, as I go around talking to my council colleagues around the county, I mean, there's some big concerns at the toll road. And honestly, it's kind of embarrassing when you read in the paper that the person you appointed to a board was stripped of a power by her colleagues. So that was the first warning signal for me. And then you go back to the bond refinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you like the 3rd CEO in a very short period of time? There's just some major issues going on the toll roads, and that's why I asked for this, because, you know, it's kind of embarrassing to go around the county and, you know, the person we appointed to a board, you know, had a power strip from them that was there for a while. So, I mean, can you explain why your colleagues would strip you from that power?
It's really not a strip of power. It was a 2008 resolution that we agreed to rescind, and I voted for that as well. It was in effect for a number of years, and the CEO, Kramen, explained the reason for that. So I think his comments are very clear.
Well, why does simple rescind of a mundane ordinance make the papers and make it seem like you were stripped of a power that was afforded to chairs going back to 2008?
Because it's the political season. That's why.
It's not.
Yes.
It's not what I've heard from some other members of the board. Give you a quick recommendation. You want some revenue generator? Call T-Mobile and AT&T and lease out some cell towers on the toll road.
It's good that you should
You
mention
drop
that,
calls 5 or 6
we're-
times. That's an easy revenue generator for the toll roads.
And that is one of the projects that I've talked to Acting CEO Kramen about on the 73 toll road. There are several drop points, and we're going to be addressing those issues this year.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, the last thing is, how long have you served on the toll roads?
Since 2007.
2007. Can you name one accomplishment from your time in, 7 years that the toll roads has achieved from your time on the toll roads? One accomplishment.
That I've achieved?
That the toll roads has achieved from your tenure, 7 years on the toll roads. One accomplishment, one success. We're trying to finish it. We're trying to take the road, to the 5. Can you name one success?
We are making great progress right now on the Tesoro extension between Oso Parkway and Cow Camp Road, which is just shy of Ortega Highway, 5.5 miles. We're just waiting for 2 federal permits and working through the appeal board process on our state water board issue. And then we're pretty much ready to move forward on that project.
And most importantly, Chairwoman Bartlett was instrumental in the $2.3 billion refinancing. She accompanied
Which I
us.
heard needed to be done because the Toll Road Association was in dire straits, almost BK. Is that not true?
That's not true. It was necessary in order to provide room in our financing to complete the system, so it was very helpful towards that.
It was very similar to refinancing your home. So right now, if you have $1 million mortgage on your house and your current interest rate is 8%, and interest rates drop, and you can refinance at a 4.2%, it makes sense to do that. We had a substantive drop in the interest rates, and the Transportation Corridor Agency decided to take advantage of that. And we went out for a $2.3 billion refinancing. I took part in 9/10 of the road show, which was very successful. We had great feedback from over 75 investor groups, and the day we went to market, we sold out literally in one day. So we were the largest bond offering that week, and it was very successful. So we have a lot of great believers out there that our toll road is successful and now and into the future. And like I said, we sold out literally in one day on our refinancing, which is amazing.
Madam Mayor, may I comment?
Yes, certainly.
One of the things you left out on that road trip was, yes, you saved a lot of money. Yes, you did the refinance like we all do for our houses, but you extended the debt out significantly farther, and the overall debt is greater now than it was before.
We've also built in the flexibility.
Is that a yes or no statement?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
But we've also built in the flexibility. It extended the debt out 13 years, but we've also put in the flexibility to pay that debt off early. And we've also eliminated our escrow defeasance fund, so it put the agency in a much better financial position. But like when you refinance your house, you've got a 30-year mortgage, you refinance from 8% down to 4.2%. Well, you're extending out your 30 years again, but it makes more sense. It gives you that extra financial flexibility out into the future. So it's the same concept. Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. Do we have a speaker slip on this item? Okay. I think we had one speaker slip on this item, Craig Alexander. If you could state your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Craig Alexander. I'm a resident and voter of Dana Point, a toll roads ratepayer, and yes, I am a supporter and volunteer of Robert Ming for his Laguna Niguel for his campaign for 5th District Supervisor. I want to get that out in the open. I address you tonight because I am concerned about the current representation of our city by Mayor Bartlett on the Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency Board of Directors, in which she is chairperson for about 1 year. As has been recently reported, apparently a past Board of Directors approved a policy that allowed the Executive Director to approve contracts for the agency without board approval if the contract was $25,000 or less, plus to allow the chairperson to approve contract extensions and increases that were greater than $25,000 without board approval if they were, and I read in the paper, to provide strategic advice. I hear from tonight from the interim CEO it's legislative action, whatever that term may mean. As has been reported in the news, the agency CEO and Ms. Bartlett approved vast numbers of contracts under this practice without the Board of Directors' approval, and more importantly, those contracts and extensions being noticed for discussion at an open meeting to the public to know and understand where their ratepayers and taxpayer dollars were going and why. It would appear that at least 6 or 7 contracts or extensions were approved by Ms. Bartlett alone in this fashion until the rest of the board recently ended this practice. One of those contracts, Gable PR LLC, has a final contract value of over $517,000. That was all through the extension process. So I would like to ask you, Mayor Bartlett, 2 questions. First, what was your criteria for approving or not approving one of these contract extensions? In other words, what did provide strategic advice or legislative action, as has been corrected, mean to you, and how you approved or did not approve one of these requests by the CEO? Secondly, how many contracts or extensions presented by the CEO under this authority did you not approve? And please tell us the names of those potential contracting parties that did, where were not approved. Finally, I would opine that your management style, okay, I see the time is almost up, so I will just end this by saying, in my opinion, you should be replaced by the city as our representative to the toll roads. And it's not silly season. Oh, yes, it is. I know that's coming up, an election. It's accountability of our ratepayer dollars.
And I think there has been great accountability. You know, these were board-approved policies and resolution. And with regard to the contracts, I think there were about 5 contracts that were signed off at the chair level, totaling less than $200,000, so it's not a vast number of contracts. And as far as those that weren't approved, there were so few that were approved that were signed off that I can't recall any that were not approved. There were so few that came up during the course of the process for legislative strategy and so on. So I think we acted in a very prudent fashion, and I've got great support from my Toll Road Board of Directors and alternates for my leadership on the agency. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Weinberg.
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment. What we read in the press, is meant mostly to sell newspapers. And I don't begrudge them that. That's their business. But it's amazing that, 16 members of the Toll Road Board of Directors, you talk about running for supervisor, supporting Mayor Bartlett to become the next supervisor of the 5th District. So, they understood what happened in the real world. They understood there was no malice. There was nothing illegal about it. And I think they also understood she had the foresight to say, okay, if this makes people feel uneasy on something you've done for the last, 8 years, 6 years, whatever the number is, hey, we'll rescind it. We'll go back to 0 and see how things operate. And if we need to put it back together, I guess they will. So I see no reason to remove her from the board. As a representative of Dana Point, I think she's doing a great job. With that, I say thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments?
Well, just thank you very much for your update.
Okay, you're very welcome.
I have nothing to report this evening.
City
I need to report that in closed session this evening, the council approved filing an amicus brief in a matter involving the California Regional Water Quality Control Board of the San Diego region and some ongoing state mandate litigation.
Thank you. We will now move on to council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Breaux.
Thank you, Mayor Bartlett. Just a few meetings to report. On the 21st of February, I attended the Mathnasium opening in Monarch Bay Plaza. On the 26th of February, I attended a impromptu fundraiser to get a karaoke machine for the social students at Lux. On the 14th of March, we had a staff meeting here at the city to discuss the homeless task force. On the 17th of March, I attended the Eagle Scout John Eric Moyles flag ceremony at the Nature Interpretive Center. And that evening, on the 17th, I attended the American Legion Post 281 meeting at Aventura in the Dana Point Harbor. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Olvera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For my meetings, on February the 20th, I attended the Festival of the Whales last preparation meeting for the Festival of the Whales. On February the 20th that evening, I attended the Chamber of Commerce mixer. On the 21st, I was at the ribbon cutting in Monarch Beach Plaza for the mask shop. On the 27th of February, I was with the Lantern District Working Group. On the 27th of February, I attended the OCFA board meeting. On the 28th of February, I attended the Festival of the Whales last organization meeting. On March the 13th, I attended at Camp Pendleton with Marines 3-5 their preparations for a training session which will be conducted at Camp Pendleton. On March the 13th, I was at the Chamber of Commerce's Doheny business meeting that was held in Doheny. And on the 17th, I was at the flag raising ceremony for the Eagle Project at the Nature Interpretive Center. Those are my meetings.
Great, thank you.
I'm not done.
Oh, all right. Proceed.
I just wanted to add a couple more comments to our item on the agenda that was talking about the Lantern District. The letter we received from Mr. Johannes actually had 0 questions in it, yet I was asked to try and answer his questions. He does make statements, public signage program with unified design, that still exists because that's in the plan. The proposed Lantern District entry feature appears to say only Del Prado is a Lantern District, not Coast Highway. That's not a question, that is an opinion. What ties the two districts together, as Councilman Schoeffel was asking, is the fact that the ornamental lighting of the originally installed in 1929 that was made in this letter is going to be reinstalled, not as regular lighting, but as ornamental lighting, the original lanterns. And that was a recommendation made by the Dana Point Historical Society when I was president, and the city is following through on that. Signage impacts the character and place of the Lantern District sign appears to be in the wrong place. No alternative location was ever suggested by either council members or the speaker. Then there's a quote from Doris Walker's book, and says the Lantern District entry feature doesn't represent that history. Well, I completely disagree with that statement because, as I just said, the lanterns are going to be installed along both Del Prado and Golden Lantern, Del Prado and Pacific Coast Highway. So the lanterns is going to define what the Lantern District really is. Other than that, I got nothing else. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Schoeffel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. Turn my meetings into the city clerk. Just like to mention what a spectacular evening on March 7th and March 8th with the Dana Point Symphony Spectacular. I know Mr. Olvera was there with us on the 7th. A lot of our citizens sold out 3 performances. It was really, really something. Hope you can all get out to our next performance. The Symphony's next performance on March 29th. We have the Oxford Boys Choir from Christchurch, England, and it's going to be quite a show, and then we have 2 more performances after that. The second thing I'd like to mention was that the whale of a concert on the last day of the Festival of Whales, boy, did that deliver. That almost made up for the fact that we got washed out on that first day and unfortunately canceled the parade, which Mr. Olvera wrote a very informative article about, and I know I learned a lot about the history of that from it. Watching almost 200 boats side-tied in the harbor, people paddling around their kayaks, stand-up paddles, great music. Mike, how many people do you suppose were there that day? It was the perfect weather day. At least 10,000. I'm guessing. Yeah, I know that there was more than 10 and probably less than 1,000, but it was quite a day, and really a testament to how hard the city staff works to put that on, how hard the Festival of Whales Organizing Committee worked to put that on, and really reflected well on the city. So on that positive note, that's all I have to say.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Bartlett.
And I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm going to be actually short. I turned my meetings in. Thank you. Have a great night.
And I'm going to be short, too, because I am short. I've attended several...
You're standing up, aren't you?
That's right. I know. It's been a very busy month. I'll be brief and just highlight the things that weren't covered. I've attended several Transportation Corridor Agency meetings and also met with legislators in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. on behalf of the agency. I've attended the Mathnasium ribbon cutting, the San Clemente Friends of the Library event at the Laguna Cliffs Marriott, Festival of Whales VIP kickoff, the Age Well Seniors Captain's Ball, the annual opera celebration for SOCIA. I was a reader for the 2 years before the Mass at the Nature Interpretive Center as part of the Festival of Whales activities. I attended and was a guest judge for the Fish for Life Clam Chowder Cook-Off, gave welcoming remarks for the concert at Baby Beach, went to an Ocean Institute Board of Directors meeting, attended the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, and on Monday, I had the honor of attending a ceremony at the Nature Interpretive Center to honor Eagle Scout John Eric Moyles for his project. He raised funds to purchase and install a flagpole at the center. And we had a ceremony. The flag flown on that day was presented by First Lieutenant Alexander Morrow from the 5th Marine Regiment, who noted that this flag was flown at our military installations in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And then I zipped over to our community center and took part in the Seniors Meals on Wheels program. And yesterday I gave the welcome remarks to the Alliance of California Judges for their conference at the Laguna Cliffs Marriott, and we hope they come back again next year. Future events, March 21st, we have the annual Senior Summit hosted by Supervisor Pat Bates in the County of Orange. Information is available at City Hall and at the Community Center. April 19th, Easter egg hunts in both Pines Park and Sea Canyon Park. And let's see, our Dana Point State of the City address will be on April the 29th. For anyone interested, we have our Dana Point 2014 calendars and the latest community news at City Hall, so feel free to come and get that. Our Q3 sales tax is up substantially in restaurants and hotels and business, so that's a good sign that things are improving in Dana Point. Absolutely, yes. And let's see. After the flag-raising ceremony, I went over to the Nature Interpretive Center. We have some new exhibits there that are amazing. First of all, we have our trail maps that are available. But the new exhibits, they include a Juan Nino Indian Cultural Station, an interactive coastal sage scrub diorama showing endangered species, an interactive San Juan Creek watershed model, and an interactive renewable energy station, along with an interactive ecological change display. So we've got great new exhibits there, great for the whole family. There's one that the kids can go underneath and then pop up into a little bubble to see everything in the diorama, and it's really quite amazing. And the interactive watershed program that we've got there on the screen is just, it's really amazing to watch. So if you get a chance, come on down to our Nature Interpretive Center and take part in that. And I'll turn it back over to Councilmember Schoeffel.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chotkevich, would you do me a big favor? I don't know if the rest of the council cares about this. The gentleman who made a public comment about being trapped in the Strand project between the two gates, could you please follow up on that with security and management over there? That shouldn't happen under any circumstance. I'm sure it was, nobody's fault, but we don't want it to be nobody's fault again.
I'll be following up on it in the morning.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and with that, we shall stand adjourned to our next regularly scheduled council meeting, which will be on April the 15th, 2014. And we're adjourned.